Part 42. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 413. A huge car would be a hill-like building on Earth. The dark color and the rust that has slowly become mottled over time show that this team has a long history and a tragic past. Under Jia Yan's astonishing gaze, Lulu talked about what she could know. And Jia Yan also gradually learned about this convoy and many shady stories on this planet. It turns out that there is such a poisonous lord-like existence on this planet. But those at the top are the ones who really make money. Even the biggest beneficiaries are the two warring parties. A convoy like Lulu's is a mobile drug depot. The police officers will come out to sweep it from time to time. If an unlucky convoy encounters them, it will be harvested like trophies, and all the harvest accumulated over a long period of time will be lost. As a result, all the money earned fell into the pockets of those at the top. But under normal circumstances, those peace officers would not take action against the drug lord's convoy. After all, they are one of the pillar industries of this warring planet. Without them, this planet would definitely be much depressed. After all, this is a battle planet with fierce fighting, not a living planet that can truly be colonized. If you want to develop and grow, apart from waiting for the two warring parties to decide the winner, you can only engage in such illegal activities. After all, their advantage is that no one cares. Interesting, it turns out there are so many inside stories inside. After listening to Lulu, who claimed to be from the Shanran civilization, and said many things, Jia Yanfu's eyes understood a lot more about the gray-yellow star. Disorder represents opportunity. Most of the so-called residents on this planet are actually opportunists. Moreover, this disordered planet really has its own rules and ways of living. I thought that the place where the war was fought was probably full of war. It was impossible for anyone to survive. But I was wrong. This kind of planet that has been at war for hundreds of years will gradually develop over the long history. Change is like fighting. If there are a large number of soldiers on both sides, then there must be trade and entertainment on this planet. After all, such a long time may be the lifetime of a soldier. There is no other way of life. If we just fight, everyone will collapse. Jia Yan slowly figured out many things. He had many doubts about this gray-yellow star before, such as this planet. Since it is a warring planet, why do cities exist? And why are there so many rules? Many non-combat areas were even divided. There are even some very weird rules, but now that I think about it, they all have historical reasons. Of course. It is precisely because of this chaos that I have the opportunity. Otherwise, I might have been captured as soon as I arrived on this planet after being injured and returning most of the energy of things. Jia Yan felt happy when he thought of this. In this case, do you have any chance against such a chaotic war planet? A sparkling light flashed in Jia Yanfu's eyes. This planet was not only attractive to those desperados, but as Jia Yan became more and more aware of the composition of the planets at war with other alien civilizations, he became more capable of taking advantage of the loopholes. Idea. There are opportunities on this planet. Absolutely. Jia Yan hasn't thought clearly about the opportunities yet, but his intuition tells him that there must be opportunities, and they are not small. The big mosquito is still fleeing with the convoy, but at this time, in several cities not far away, a rumor about the powerful life form of the big mosquito is spreading. A battle pet in city number 6 suddenly fought with an unknown life form when it was almost reaching the final of the battle pet competition. Moreover, his strength is actually much higher than what he can perform on the battlefield. He should not be possessed by a battle pet at all. After that, the battle pet disappeared, which made many residents of city number 6 panic. They were all worried that this might have something to do with the military. After all, on this planet, only the two warring parties can have such combat power. In fact, this is a cognitive problem. On this planet, the military has always been absolutely powerful. It would be false to say that there are no other powerful forces on this planet. After all, there are powerful forces everywhere. However, under the strong control of the military, they can only hide in dark corners and dare not come out. Therefore, most people think that the sudden appearance of the battle pet assassin who has a battle with an inexplicable life form will definitely lead to a fight. What is the relationship between the two parties? That would frighten city residents. There is a perception on this planet that any problem involving the military is a big problem. They don't want anything to happen to the city where they live comfortably. All alien life forms are cursing the giant mosquito monster that left. Of course, they don't know that this monster is a mosquito on the Earth, and even most people don't even know where the Earth is, but this does not prevent them from treating this monster with the pseudonym assassin as a plague general existence. Sure enough, their worries came true. Not long after the battle pet assassin left the city, the visiting diplomat from the biochemical country, that white life form, suddenly announced that he was targeting city number 6. Emergency control was carried out. In terms of urban management, we were completely caught off guard. Before they had time to react, large numbers of monsters were approaching the city. Everyone can tell the difference. Those are soldiers from the biochemical kingdom. What's going on? Didn't the people from the biochemical country sign an agreement with the Asta country and won't interfere in our cities? Why are they coming to deal with us now? The managers of city number 6 gathered together urgently. They were in a state of distress but could do nothing to deal with the besieging soldiers from the biochemical nation. The high-end combat power of this planet is definitely controlled by both warring parties. Even if they are just managers selected by both parties, they have no right to say anything about such matters. They had no choice but to seek help from the other side of the biochemical country, the Asta military. Not long after, combat aircraft appeared from the sky above the city. And below, there are also powerful monsters gathering on the outskirts of the city. A scene that originally only appeared in the war zone. It actually appeared on the outskirts of the city. Now there is an even greater panic in the entire huge city covering hundreds of kilometers. If the war occurs near the city, or even in the city, then this huge city with tens of millions of lives is absolutely in ruins. It was razed to the ground in minutes. The two sides were confronting each other, and only the residents of city number 6, who were surrounded by both warring sides, roared in fear in their hearts. Why on earth? Of course they don't know. The trigger of this dispute may be the assassin they had always regarded as the new dark horse in the battle pet competition. This monster not only succeeded in becoming famous in the city, but also became famous in the warring biochemical country. That's right. The reason for this situation. Naturally, it was the white life form after fighting Jia Yan. The news was quickly passed back to the base camp of biochemical country. I don't know what kind of situation it described, but it seemed that the huge horned monster was killed because of this news. There was a huge shock. He did not hesitate to violate the war treaty, but actually went out in person, causing less than half of the war troops to appear on the outskirts of the city. The troops of the biochemical nation have countless monsters. Although these monsters cannot completely surround the entire city number 6, they can completely lock city number 6 with 3 steps, 1 sentry, and 5 steps. The combat power is definitely not something that the ordinary alien life forms in the city can defeat. Even the Asta troops above them did not dare to make any move. After all, a battle is a battle. If they also launch a war with the biochemical nation army in this place, then they will bear a great responsibility. After all, below it's not just the Asta people, but also the lives of countless other interstellar civilizations. If they take action, they will suffer heavy casualties. It may become an international problem. In this case, their image will definitely be greatly damaged. Even those biochemical people who seem to drink blood like hair and blood are worried about this problem. Father, do you think it is really worth it for us to do this? If we do this, the image of our biochemical country that has honestly abided by treaties for more than 100 years will be destroyed. Those civilizations that originally wanted to recognize us will, maybe you'll hesitate again. Among the countless monsters, a white life form and a supergiant monster over 50 meters tall stand at the center of countless monsters. The monsters here are all extremely powerful beings, but they can standing in the middle of all the monsters, you can see that his identity is extraordinary. If Jia Yan were here, he would naturally be able to recognize that the white life form that was not much different from him in size was the one he had fought before. She is definitely big enough. Even in this monster-filled biochemical army, she is at least an upper middle level. But this white monster, standing next to the huge horned monster, is different from an elephant standing next to it. It's the same as the pony next to him, except that it reaches as high as the opponent's knees. Hearing the beautiful female voice coming from the white life form, the horned monster standing next to her was startled for a moment, as if he had just thought of this matter now. Then, contrary to his own image, he leaned down and lovingly touched the pure and flawless back hair of the white life form. "My good daughter is indeed smart. My father didn't think so far ahead," he praised. "You just don't like to use your brain." That pure white life form could not help but curse in the bottom of its heart. But it doesn't matter. If this monster is really what the frog monster and the rat monster reported, then its value is definitely not that simple. What is reputation and image? Our biochemical nation did not rely on its image to successfully build a country. Yes. If those alien life forms don't agree with us, we don't need to agree with us, and if they don't trade with us, we will go to their planet to get it ourselves. If that monster is really what I thought, then there is definitely value in letting us leave everything behind. The huge monster made a roaring sound and spoke in the Ostal language. They are obviously a self-proclaimed country, but they still use the Ostal language. I don't know if there is any inside story in this. Does he have the value to make our country and all other civilizations at odds with each other? When the white life form heard what the horned monster said, its beautiful big eyes suddenly widened. She was in disbelief. When she fought with the monster before, although she felt that there seemed to be a powerful force on the opponent's body, she had not used half of the force at that time. She has the confidence to use 80% of her power. She could suppress the monster, and actually at that time, the opponent was actually suppressed by her. If you really had any ability, you should have used it then. That kind of monster. Is it really of this value? A guy who can't even beat her. Dad won't fall into the old fool's disease again. The white life form looked helplessly at his father, who looked like a towering mountain. In fact, she doesn't think so yet. This tall guy who doesn't look like him can actually be his father. Just saying that this horned monster will definitely burst into tears. So she refrained from asking. That flying monster, if there's anything strange about it. This white life form. Silence fell. At this time, she was recalling the battle with the big mosquito, but she didn't care what she thought. I don't think there's anything unique about that monster. On the contrary, it is extremely strange. What is it about this monster that makes his father value him so much? Let's talk about strong combat power. It was indeed powerful, not much different from her own half-strength self, but it would be wrong to say it was extremely powerful. After all, there were a lot of people in this biochemical nation's fighting force whose combat capabilities exceeded hers. At least that kind of power is not worth the price this country, which was just born, has to pay for its image and tear-up treaties. After thinking about it for a long time, this white monster couldn't figure it out and had no choice but to give up. At this time, among the combat aircraft above their heads, the Asta people reacted. A large individual that seemed to cover the sky slowly flew downwards, and finally reached the center point of countless battle pets here. This is the opponent's top management taking action. The militaries of the two countries have officially begun negotiations. No one knew what the content of the negotiation was. They just knew that the army of the biochemical nation soon retreated. No one even knows why. After more than 100 years of observance of various interstellar agreements, the newly emerging country of biochemical country did not hesitate to violate the previously signed treaties for the first time and also surrounded the seemingly ordinary place. City number 6. Only some relevant personnel understood that after the biochemical kingdom retreated for a period of time, some monsters from the biochemical kingdom suddenly appeared in city number 6. Moreover, some of the life forms in city number 6 also unknowingly disappeared as if they had never appeared before. Among them is Gyutin, who once trained an assassin. The big mosquito is probably his natural disaster. After bringing the other person a short period of glory and wealth, it will be followed by endless pain. How depressing. If I had known earlier, I wouldn't have invited those two guys riding in a heavily guarded car. Gyutin looked at his three-headed battle pet being chased by a monster that looked to be only half the height of the three-headed battle pet, marching forward in fear. As early as after the assassin caused a huge stir, Gyutin was detained by some so-called secret units. Now after being tossed around, he was actually sent outside the city. He didn't know where he would be taken, but he felt extremely regretful in his heart. All of this was caused by those two guys, and the assassin who looked powerful to him was indeed right. He was even more powerful than he imagined. He was simply an existence that looked down upon the top combat power of the warring countries. Gyutin felt like he wanted to curse. But who can he scold? He had invited the other party himself at the beginning, and he was still glad to have invited the other party, but who would have thought that those two guys would be a big trouble? He doesn't know what his fate will be next, so he can only leave it to fate. What Gyutin didn't know was that in city number 6, a guy he was missing about was also having a hard time avoiding the ensuing arrests. Late at night, in a city that has implemented an emergency half-curfew. A waste of time. Da-da-da-da. A woman wearing high heels kept running on the ground, making crisp sounds. This sound was very clear to hear at night. The woman kept running in the dark corner of the city, and while running, she usually looked behind her, as if there was something chasing behind her. Her speed slowly became faster and faster, and there seemed to be a strange power wrapping her body, making it float lightly, almost flying. Just behind it, there was indeed a figure as fast as lightning, also pursuing it at extremely high speed. This is a leopard-like monster. Moreover, his body was completely black, and when he moved in the dark, he would come and go without a trace. This monster seems to have the ability to track remotely. Follows the figure of the woman and moves quickly. The two figures are getting closer and closer. At that moment, the woman was running so fast that she was almost chased by the Black Panther coming from behind. Squeak. A house door suddenly opened. The woman was shocked and was about to take precautions. But in silence, something lit up on the other side. Her defensiveness suddenly stopped. Soon, she got into the door of the house, and at the same time, another woman ran out of the door of the house. As she ran, her clothes and figure gradually became more and more like the woman who escaped before. The Black Panther chased outside the house, its nose flaring, and then without any suspicion at all, it directly pursued the woman behind it in the direction where it escaped. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 414. Tap 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 tap. The sound gradually faded away, from being extremely clear to being insignificant. Are you really from the Empire? In the house, the first thing the woman who had escaped alive asked was the several life forms that looked like Asta people who greeted her. Behind her open pockets, there is a head of eye-catching red hair, and her face is exquisite, and her figure is no longer perfect even if it increases or decreases, and she has that extremely perfect figure. It is this woman named Defuni. We are Imperial people. We were just transformed into this because of the mission. Are you really the Miss Delphine on Earth? Among the people who were greeted over there, there was someone who was extremely confused and asked. You must know that they still don't believe it yet. This woman actually sent a secret signal, saying that she was the representative of the Empire in the distant solar system, that planet with life. This incident caused a small fluctuation in the Imperial forces. After all, what the other party said was so twists and turns that many of them still can't believe it. Yes, I really come from the Earth. If you don't believe it, I can take a vital sign confirmation test with you. But please hurry up in this process. I have something urgent to report to the upper management of the Empire, Daphne said, as if she was finally convinced by the confirmation. For his own safety, he relaxed in his heart, and his expression returned to a slightly enchanting look from the previous nervousness. On the Imperial side, everyone listened to Daphne's words in confusion. Tests to confirm vital signs must be confirmed. After all, it is impossible for them to directly believe a person who says that he is an Imperial life form. Seeing the Imperial life forms that looked like Asta people walking around, Daphne's red lips evoked a smile because she had escaped alive. Master, I have finally returned to the embrace of the Empire. Next, I will repay you, thinking of the big mosquito at the last moment. The merciless killing move against her, she had a little bit of affection for the big mosquito, but it was completely consumed. Everything that happens in the city is unknown to the mosquito thousands of kilometers away. He is just a very special presence in the team. Slowly follow the pace of the convoy. A mountain-like thing had been crawling on the top of the car, beside him. It is the little figure that has gradually become accustomed to the big mosquito. Is this how you keep moving along the equator on this planet? The mosquito listened to Lulu's words. He couldn't help but ask strangely. Yes, our plants can only grow better near the equator. But those sheriffs have noticed this. Once they want money, they will come out to rob us. This was the case in the past. It has happened more than once, but never as serious as this time. They are all bad people. That little bunny-eared female. Thinking of the previous police officers, he looked very angry. He looked so angry that Jia Yan couldn't help but smile. It was already more than 3 days after Jia Yan and the convoy were traveling on the edge of the forest. 3 days on this planet, in fact, can be as long as nearly 2 weeks on the Earth, so at this time Jia Yan was not sure about this strange thing. Group, we have an in-depth understanding. As a group that grows poisons, they are basically the type to take things easy on this planet. The small town before was their temporary resting place, and they would never stay in one place for more than a month. Because the harvest time for the poisons they planted was actually less than a month. After harvesting in one place, the ecological environment of that place was destroyed, and they had to move to another place. There are many such small convoys. Lulu told them that there are more than 20 or 30 people who have dealings with this convoy. Even in wider areas, there are more similar convoys, they are either overt or covered, no one knows the specific number. This gentleman, our leader has something to discuss with you. I wonder if you are free. Suddenly, a quiet voice appeared behind Jia Yan. Jia Yan was not too surprised. After all, as a powerful life form and the mosquito's powerful infrared detection ability, if any life form could approach him quietly, it would definitely be an extremely powerful being. And the life form approaching now is definitely not among the powerful. He turned around and saw a life form that looked like an onion behind him. This life form has a head that looks like an onion, and it seems that this head is born with toxins. If they encounter a life threat, they will spray out the venom that they have brewed for many years. Sometimes it can activate to miraculous effect. But this kind of thing is already insignificant to a big mosquito, so when he heard Lulu talk about it a few days ago, he just heard it and forgot about it. Not long after, the big mosquito, who had been fooling around with Lulu for several days, came to the frog monster. After so many days of understanding, Jia Yan was finally surprised to know that this frog monster was nothing else. Most of them are exactly what Daphne refers to as Empire people. It's just that the empire in Daphne's mouth is called Rulan civilization in the mouths of other life forms, and the real name of their life forms is also Rulan people. However, in Daphne's view, the word Rulan in the imperial meaning originally means empire. In fact, this kind of thing is also common in many civilizations, because the names of many interstellar civilizations are different from their own. It seems that it is just a big name, such as empire, alliance, principality, etc. But when other civilizations call those civilizations, they sound different due to accent issues. Of course, not all the so-called Rulan Empire people look like this kind of big frog. This kind of frog people is just a species among the Rulan people. They have a frog-like appearance, and they seem to be very different from other civilizations. A frog-like existence that I find very cute, just like the frogs on Earth, which once caused a certain sensation among the frog races in the Rulan Empire, if they were not too far apart. It seems there were a lot of frog people back then. I want to go to the Earth and adopt some frogs as pets. As for this planet, there are many frog people. And it seems that a large number of them are engaged in illegal work, which has a deeper reason. As early as 300 years ago. Even as early as 200 years ago, on this gray-yellow star, they competed with the Asta people for the gray-yellow star. He was originally from Rulan, but because of an incident, the biochemical empire suddenly pouted, and they didn't know where they united with a Zerg that had never appeared in this star field before. They fought all the way and even defeated Rulan civilization. After that, it turned into a melee between the coalition forces and the Asta Empire. Among the Rulan warriors left on this planet, many are this kind of frog people. In the end, these frog people gradually evolved into what they are now. They are not subordinate to any of them, they are just carrying out illegal activities rampantly on this planet. Even among these frog people, there are many Rulan spies who are responsible for the Rulan people's return to this planet. When he saw the leader of the frog people, Jia Yan filtered it through in his mind. Over the past few days, he had been picking up the knowledge about the frog people from the sidelines. I can't have too much contact with this kind of monster. Everything about them has the shadow of the so-called empire behind them. If I have too much contact with them, I don't know when they will be plotted by that Rulan civilization in the future. Thinking of Daphne, Jia Yan had a headache. After all, this woman knew too much about him. At least on this planet, he didn't think anyone knew that he was an evolved beast, but Daphne is absolutely clear on this. Now I don't know if that woman is already taking action against him. Jia Yan was distracted. The big frog in front of him had already spoken his own words. This, sir, according to my information, right in front of our convoy, there is a smaller convoy planting there, but they have never dealt with us very well, and, our convoy some of the supplies are also insufficient. I would like to discuss with you, sir, if you can help us negotiate with this convoy to get some supplies from them. This big frog is as tall as a person, but it is different from some individuals Jia Yan has seen before. He is very fat. If he didn't know that the other party also has brainwave power, he would not believe that such an existence would be in this convoy. The strongest existence. Get supplies. Jia Yan was stunned for a moment, and then he came to his senses. The so-called obtaining supplies is actually to rob the other party, right? Jia Yan didn't care about this. He had made an agreement with this so-called leader before that he would not do too much management of this convoy, but would only use them to collect some supplies. And before those things happened, the leader asked him to do this thing, which was probably just like a certificate of surrender. After all, if you want others to work for you, you have to show your sincerity. For example, help them rob a motorcade. Jia Yan has no mental barriers to this. After a while, a team of 50 light vehicles separated from this huge convoy and rushed forward. And not long after they left. Boom 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 boom. A huge and unparalleled figure also quickly rose from a corner in the convoy. The way it covered the sky made all the sentient beings in the convoy extremely excited. Haha, this is the super soldier of our convoy. He is even more powerful than ordinary army soldiers. With this monster here, we are not invincible. Most of the living beings in the convoy below were extremely excited when they saw the flying figure of the big mosquito. They are not good at fighting, but they know the strength of the soldiers in the military very well. After all, as a being who lives by licking blood from the edge of a knife, it is impossible for these living beings to understand each one of them. After all, it is about their own lives. And they had a rough judgment on the strength of the big mosquito before, that is, this big mosquito can escape from those aircraft with its life, and its combat effectiveness is at least as good as that of an ordinary army soldier. The soldiers mentioned here are not Asta soldiers, but the soldiers from the biochemical country. On this planet, the standard for measuring soldiers is based on the soldiers of the biochemical country. Everything in that country does not rely on technological weapons. Instead, he uses physical combat power as his main fighting method. This is also the way to measure the combat strength of a living being on this planet. The combat effectiveness displayed by the big mosquito is basically unmatched by an ordinary soldier from the biochemical nation. After all, although those sheriff's aircraft are already old-fashioned military obsolete systems. But such a large number is definitely not something that a soldier from the biochemical nation can fight against. So at this time, if Big Mosquito goes to help his team fight, there will definitely be a winner but no loss. The people on the team have full confidence in me. Jia Yan was naturally aware of the cheers from the people in the motorcade, and suddenly shook his head helplessly. In this convoy, he felt that the atmosphere was not what he thought. Everyone in the convoy was truly sad for those who died, and for the orphans and widows in the convoy. Like Lulu, these people have no excuses for bullying. Perhaps such a poverty-stricken organization is not like Jia Yan expected, with everyone scheming. But we really have to support each other, otherwise we can't go on together. It's quite a good organization. But Jia Yan himself couldn't integrate into them. When necessary, Jia Yan doesn't think he will give up on them if the other party does anything detrimental to him. Even if Jia Yan strangled the convoy, that would be normal. Certainly. Things haven't reached that point yet. Today's Alu's team is also extremely happy, as a small player in this industry. In the past, most of the convoy members were even destroyed by the sheriff's aircraft. However, there was good luck and misfortune. A powerful monster fell from the sky and not only rescued his convoy when it almost collapsed under the sheriff's attack, but also rescued them. Then he returned to their motorcade and said they wanted to cooperate. God knows, as the leader of such a weak team, he was extremely excited at the time and wanted to agree immediately. However, as a leader, he should be vigilant, so he did not immediately show his happiness. After all, no one knew the other party's true purpose. He just knew that if the other party had any purpose, he would not be able to find him. After all, the small team is too weak. There is no need to tell them so much about the strength of the opponent. However, the other party still abided by the agreement with him. Today, he received a message from his subordinates, saying that the shadow of his old rival, known as the Lokerfu team, appeared ahead. This convoy is a being that, although it has always been weaker than the Orlux convoy, it has been wandering near Orlux's territory and cannot be driven away no matter what. They fought each other no less than 20 times because of territorial issues. However, although the Lokerfu fleet had a small number of personnel and was not very well equipped, its fighting power was very strong. After several battles, both sides won and lost, unable to completely destroy the opponent. But today is different. Although they only brought less than a quarter of the combat vehicles, there was that powerful flying life form above their heads. He is so powerful, just look at it. How majestic his figure is, With his wings spread out, you can almost believe that he is the largest living being on the planet. Under his attack, the Damlukafu convoy will never be able to easily repel us, and even their entire army will be destroyed after this battle. At this time, Aluz's pair of frog eyes kept bulging. This is what happens when the frog alien is very excited. Just like among humans, many people can't help but feel free when they are excited. Like puffing up his nose. The convoy continued to move. Jia Yan was flying high in the sky. As an absolute ace, he was begged by Aluz to take action as late as possible. So at this time, the flight speed is slightly higher, and at the same time, it flies away from the convoy here. The Oryx battle convoy below is moving quickly. They did not hide their appearance. Even if they wanted to hide, it would be difficult to hide in the desert surrounding the forest. Not long after, a small convoy over there easily discovered this frantically attacking combat convoy. Jia Yan was flying high in the sky. He estimated that his body had flown above 10,000 meters. Even if he saw his body on the ground, he would have thought it was a passing aircraft or something else. He should not be caught. The life form below is suspicious. He looked down with compound eyes, and saw only the earth, forest, and yellow sand desert under his feet. It was like a clear line, which seemed to separate the gray-yellow forest and desert completely in a straight line. The scenery is great. The small convoys moving forward became like ants, with 50 vehicles forming a team and rushing forward quickly. The convoy rushed forward quickly, causing dust and haze to rise behind the wheels. Jia Yan had a broad field of vision and soon discovered that in front of their convoy, there were some ultra-miniature aircraft flying in the sky. These aircraft were like those toy airplanes on the Earth. And they are only 30 or 40 in size. Centimeters, the hovering height is only about 100 meters. They all gathered in front of the invading convoy. They must have sent out a signal and rushed towards the invading 50 small combat convoy. These ultra-miniature aircraft are all bombs. Boom boom boom. Bombs exploded near the 50 car bodies. Jia Yanfu's eyes flashed with light. The battle below, if viewed from an Earthling's perspective, would definitely be considered intense. Of the 50 attacking Oryx small combat vehicles, 2 were immediately damaged and unable to move. But the rest still roared forward. Thanks to the Sioux Clan People Book Friend for the 1W starting coin reward, I will try to complete the update vote you voted for tomorrow. 6,000 is the base, 9,000 I will give it a try to break out 9,000 words at a time. If it doesn't work, please don't be disappointed, haha. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 415. First update. Let's see how many updates you can do today. In addition, please continue to seek genuine subscriptions. If the average number of subscriptions reaches more than 200, we will release another update. Jia Yan looked further ahead. In the yellow sand sky, 3 kilometers away from the Oryx combat convoy, there was already a battle town composed of almost 300 vehicles. The house slowly fell down and put away its own. The towns look like those houses gradually turning into combat vehicles. They seem to be seriously preparing for a decisive battle with the 50 invading combat vehicles. Interesting. Jia Yan looked at the majestic pre-war scenery below, and his originally uninterested look changed. Watching these battles is an interesting thing for him. But apart from being interesting, it seems to have no other meaning. After all, his current life level has long exceeded the level of this kind of battle, and there is nothing that can be used as a reference. The small combat vehicles below were rushing forward one by one. Then they approached the convoy of fallen houses in the distance. At this time, the convoy over there was already treating these intruders seriously. They still didn't understand who the intruders were from. After all, in this desert, there are countless convoys, and some of them are even useless. Not poisonous people like them, but real big forces. So they didn't dare to act rashly. The previous explosion of the aircraft was just a way of saying hello. After all, in this marginal area of desert and forest, they just want to survive and make profits, and they do not create a convoy for fighting at all. Boom boom boom. The plumes of smoke and dust were approaching, and the huge convoy over there finally understood what kind of force was coming. It's this guy Oryx. Asshole, this guy has been defeated by us so many times, but he still has the guts to come here. Ha ha ha, I heard that their convoy was packed up by the sheriff a few days ago. Maybe they are out of supplies now. They are so desperate that they can only send so few cars to attack us. Guys, let's catch the turtle in the jar today. Help the sheriffs to deal with Allos and his gang. One by one, the characters dropped off the Craft Motorsport team. When I saw the small convoy coming over there, the logo on the car body was that it belonged to the Allos convoy, and I burst into laughter. As a team with extremely strong practical capabilities. It's not that they are not afraid of such a small convoy, after all, they are in an alien civilization. What you look at is not the size of the convoy, or even to a large extent the equipment of the convoy, but the combatants. Among the forces at the junction of forest and desert. However, there are some powerful forces who do not have many personnel and equipment. But its strength exceeds that of the Lokafu fleet. It relies on the strength of those individual soldiers. Now I see that the invading force is not a powerful convoy at all, but my old friend Allos. These are the personnel of the craft fleet. Suddenly, everyone started yelling and scolding in an angry and funny manner. They had already received information from the informant. Previously, the Allos convoy was attacked by a police convoy, which greatly damaged the strength of the convoy. They originally approached in this direction with the idea of attacking the Allos convoy. But unexpectedly, before he got close to the opponent, the remnant army attacked him. And it's still such a small team. Doesn't this look down on them and the craft racing team? That's it for other teams. This Ulu's team used to go out in full force, but it was just a general that overwhelmed the Lokafu team. Now, what can such a small number of people do? He is simply here to die. Come on. Let these people from the Olux racing team know how powerful our Lokade racing team is. The leader of the Lokafu convoy over there smiled with anger, and ordered his men to outflank the 50 tanks that were attacking. The people in the Allos convoy here seemed not to have seen the hundreds of tanks that were pressing forward with fierce momentum. They just drove dozens of vehicles and turned around to avoid the opponent's main force. The sky was filled with dust, and both parties were actually traveling at a very slow speed. At least on Earth, it was impossible for ordinary cars to reach such speeds. Each car in the yellow sand was traveling at a speed equivalent to 300 to 400 kilometers per hour on Earth. Boom boom boom. The sound of the engine continued to sound. This kind of car was considered primitive among alien civilizations, but at this time it had a strange sense of beauty, a rough and heroic feeling, which caused the two sides to attack each other. It was simply such a touch of heroism. Two giant dragons formed by dust explosions chased each other in the yellow sand. Swish, swish, swish. Among the 50 vehicles here, there are some light artillery pieces, which shoot out gray light one after another, leaving traces on some of the heavy vehicles of the Lokafu fleet. Ha ha ha, grandsons of Lokafu. Listen to me, today I, the Allos convoy, want you to hand over half of the goods and supplies, otherwise, you will suffer a lot. Allos was riding in his car and picked up his communicator at the same time. After adjusting the frequency band to the public frequency band, he screamed fiercely. Olux! It seems that your convoy is really at a dead end. You bastard actually went out in person. Let's see, will I swallow up your crippled Olux convoy, or will you rob our Lokafu convoy? In the past, you couldn't even do it with full strength, but now is it possible to do it with such a small number of defeated soldiers? This is not what you dream of doing. Haha, just wait, your spring and autumn dream will be crushed by us soon. In the Lookafo team here, there is also a guy who looks like a crocodile head. He picks up his communicator and makes a terrifying sound wave. This guy is a guy who joined the army before but failed. As a life form that does not really exist, he is a research life form that was eliminated by the Scientific Research Center in a civilization. However, he found an opportunity to escape and came to this place. Planet, accidentally bumped into it, formed a team, and named the team with his own name, Lookafo. Almost all of his men are living beings like him, some are biological beings who came from the desert, and some are powerful warriors who failed to join the army. Although none of them have become regular warriors, their strength is absolutely terrifying, so in this the land of Radius can be said to be small in scale but powerful in combat. As for the former Alu's convoy, although it was large in size, there were many old, weak, sick and disabled people like Lulu in it, so its real combat effectiveness may not be greater than that of the Lookafo convoy. Now that it has become a remnant army, it is even worse. Lookafo. The grievances between you and me have been going on for so long, and we have to settle it today. Tell me, will you give me the supplies and goods or not? Alus glared at facing the frog's eyes, he gave a vicious smile. Give it to your mother. Everyone, come to us and defeat them. Lookafo over there simply turned off the communication. In this edge of the desert and forest, everything still depends on strength. No matter how powerful your words are, if your fists are not big enough, you will still end up dead. Boom 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 boom. One after another, the Lookafo tanks quickly pursued the bodies of 50 Oryx tanks, rolling them into the sky and into the ground, leaving almost no way to escape. Surround. Come together and surround us. The soldiers of the Lookafo convoy are indeed powerful figures. Some of them are even carrying things similar to rocket launchers. They jump out of the tank directly and run at high speed in the long yellow sand. Watch when the opportunity comes, he will pick up his own weapons, and while running, he will attack the Oryx convoy whose life hangs by a thread. 300 tanks faced 50 light tanks. This was a one-sided battle. Not long after, some of the 50 chariots were in dire straits. Being cut and surrounded by chariots several times larger than themselves, in the yellow sand that filled the sky, no matter how they attacked, they could not escape from each other's encirclement, just like Sun Wukong could not escape from the five-fingered palm of Tathagata Buddha. Ha ha ha. Alus, you are really just a team that only knows how to brag. Let's see how I strangle you. Lookafo was riding on his chariot, looking at the desperate Oryx team in front, with an arrogant smile on his face. It seemed that in the next moment, he would be able to kill his old opponent who had been fighting for a long time. Get off the horse. At this moment, the big frog on the Oryx chariot also had a very human and crazy smile. Sir. Please take action. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito author, Bulletin U. Chapter 416. Second update. Sir. Please take action. Alus picked up a special communicator placed next to him and roared. At the same time, thousands of meters above the sky, the equipment placed on the tentacles by Jia Yan sounded this roar. Although there is communication suppression by various forces, communication within a mere 10,000 meters is still possible with unique equipment. What's more, the guy yelled so loudly that Jia Yan felt that if he tried harder, could he directly use his roar to reach his body. Of course, this is just a joke. You're screaming so excitedly, why bother, hee hee. At this moment, the big mosquito's compound eyes suddenly flashed with light. The battle below is very exciting. The chariots attack each other, flying around, and the simple lights of various colors flying all over the sky. It looks like a scene from a science fiction blockbuster. If Ulus hadn't sent out a distress signal, Jia Yan would have been really interested in watching. In just a short period of time, damage appeared on Alus's side. If he didn't take action, there would definitely be heavy casualties. Even if Alus wanted to have a personal battle with the people from the Lukafor racing team, he would not be impulsive at this time. Jia Yan's huge body made a slight angle adjustment in the air. The two wings are like huge, extremely sharp blades. Cut open the air. Head down and hit it. The body of the big mosquito is like a huge hill, soaring towards the earth. His speed is unbelievable, and his dive is even more terrifying. The majestic body like that of a mountain had already crossed a distance of 10,000 meters in the blink of an eye, almost as if teleporting, and came to the sky above the two warring parties with just a thought. And among the life forms on both sides of the war below, during the sudden movements, some people saw the scene of the sky covering the sky. Especially the craft racing team. Because the opponent is really weak. Some of the teams had no desire to take action at all, and were just circling around the outside of the battle circle, seemingly ready to stand by and watch as spectators the demise of the Alus team that had been against them. Although this will certainly not be the main body of the Ulus team. But it is definitely their main fighting force, if even this combat vehicle is destroyed. There are a huge number of convoys over there, which are their spoils of war. Thinking of this, those who dropped off the craft fleet. They are all jealous, they are all in this Lukafu convoy. Naturally, they wanted to make money, but in the 3 Earth years since the team was established, there has been no development. Their self-proclaimed military power is within the scope of this desert. It's not that outstanding. Now that there is a simple possibility of more than doubling the size of their fleet, they are naturally extremely excited. That Alus must have been stunned by the sheriffs. Otherwise, how could he have become so stupid? Like a fool, he actually showed up at his door. A convoy soldier riding in a tank was holding his own rocket-like weapon with a sly smile on his face. This is a frogman, but there is not much goodwill between frogmen. He is also full of murderous intent towards that Oryx. Huh? Suddenly, the frogman saw a large shadow appearing on the rocket barrel he was carrying. He was startled, and then the frogman turned his gaze to the sky above his head. After that, he only saw an inexplicably huge figure full of oppressive aura, coming from the 10,000-meter sky, suppressing him fiercely. Ah! Enemy attack! There are enemies in the sky. The frogman's face changed drastically and he screamed at the same time. His voice was extremely rough, and his eyes were extremely prominent as he screamed. When the soldiers in the surrounding tanks heard the voice from the communicator, their expressions suddenly changed. No wonder the life forms of the Alus convoy dared to attack them in such a small number. It turned out that they were supported by power from the sky. Each of these life forms quickly raised their heads. They were wondering if the other party had some aircraft fighting in the sky. After all, in the alien civilization, although there are many flying vehicles, they are unable to form combat effectiveness. Those civilian objects are living targets as soon as they fly into the sky, and any laser shot can cause them to crash. A flying car is impossible. Did that guy Ulus really get a combat aircraft? These life forms looked up one by one with solemn expressions. Aircraft are not that easy to deal with. If it is really a combat model, even if there is only one, it will be a huge blow to any fleet that is not well equipped. Threats. This is. Suddenly, those living beings who looked up looked at their vision organs in astonishment. Especially the extremely large number of frog people. They all seemed to have their eyes popping out of their sockets when they looked at the things approaching proudly above their heads. A look of extreme fear. No one thought that the so-called enemy was not a speeding car or an aircraft, but a real flying life form. What kind of life form is this? He has a body length of nearly 20 meters, and has a tall, dark, and slender mouth parts. With his wings spread, he can cover a sky area of 60 to 70 meters. At first glance, I really thought it was the largest life form on the planet. The roots of his long legs are sharp, and each one is as thick as a frog monster's arm. Although it looks slender, no one dares to underestimate its attack power. It is not even certain whether those chariots can withstand one of his thrusts. Thing. Boom 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 boom. When the big mosquito comes, the strong wind pressure sweeping from above, that is, the strong wind caused by the big mosquito, finally has some relief. He was like the king who ruled here, making the entire battlefield fall into silence. Don't be afraid. This might be just an ordinary flying creature. Lukafu, who was riding in the strongest protective vehicle, had a ferocious expression on his face, and then he suddenly shouted out. This crocodile-headed monster just had a lucky idea at this time. After all, there are so many life forms on this planet, but there are not many flying life forms. Among them, there are even fewer fighting types, just like the so-called diplomat who arrived in city number 6 a few days ago was riding a flying monster from the biochemical kingdom that was huge but had average combat capability. Although this monster looks powerful now, it still cannot be compared with the flying life form of the diplomat. It is very likely that he is just a being with weak combat ability. The eyes of the members of the Lukafu team in the tank suddenly lit up after hearing Lukafu shouting like this. They are also veterans of the world. As long as they calm down, they can think of, there is definitely a chance that this flying monster is not extremely powerful. On the entire planet, the most powerful flying life form is the Zerg, but it is almost impossible for the Zerg to escape to the outside world alone. Yes, this monster must be an ordinary flying life form. These life forms became confident one by one, but what they didn't expect was that Jia Yan, flying in from the sky, didn't give them any time to change their mood. Just take a quick look. It crossed the center of a craft car. Click. This car. Suddenly there was a huge noise. Everyone saw that the car body quickly decomposed and became two halves visible to the naked eye. The driver of the car and the soldiers riding in the car were both killed. The big mosquito didn't wait for any reaction from them. His body suddenly rose up and came to the vicinity of a larger car body like lightning. The front feet continued to poke out. Jia Yan's front foot can be said to be a perfect sword that is both sharp and sharp. With the inertia of his flying speed, it becomes even more powerful. Bang! This time, the big mosquito did not cut directly, but stretched out its front legs and pierced the car body in front of it, which was more than 30 meters long. Second update, thank you all for your tips, especially the 1888 tips from book friend Easy00, and the 588 tips from the brothers 9-angled pupils, and of course the tiger that eats pigs fallen leaves will not come back. Rewards and messages of support from some old brothers and friends. Guess how many more updates there are to come. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito author, Bulletin U. Chapter 417. Third update, there is another update that is almost finished, that is to say, today's fourth update is over 10,000 words, the fourth update will be posted soon. With an earth-shattering noise, this heavy tank, whose defense was definitely better than that of an earth tank, rolled over. The driver in the car had already been stung by the giant mosquito and could no longer die. However, the soldiers in the car were all unable to lock onto the extremely fast giant mosquito and had to overturn in the car body. Under the impact, they were scattered one by one, watching helplessly as the big mosquitoes leisurely lifted up the knife-shaped horns of their front feet again and stabbed the comrades around them. Phew! Phew! Ah, monster! Die! A guy who might have some strength, he had 6 arms. When he saw the big mosquito right in front of him, the 3 laser guns held by his 6 arms suddenly lit up with gray light. His reaction speed is extremely fast, and perhaps he is also an extremely terrifying presence in this Lukafu team. But facing Jia Yan, where is his strength enough to be able to be ruthless? Boom boom boom. 3 rays of fire shot at the big mosquito's body, but they could only stir up waves of light. Jia Yan didn't care about him at all before. Instead, he used his mouthparts to hit the head of a frog-like monster. His mouthparts were like the giant stick holding up the sky in front of these living creatures. Coming down, it seems that Sun Wukong's golden cudgel has become bigger and is photographed from the sky. Bang, the frog life-form was immediately dead. At the same time, Jia Yan raised one of his front legs. The six-handed monster that fired 3 lasers was directly stabbed by his front legs, and a line of blood appeared on his chest. Whole bloodstains flew, and big mosquitoes flew up in the bloodstains. Ross. How is that possible? The Lukafu life forms over there all showed incredulous expressions when they saw this 6-armed monster being casually killed by Jia Yan. It seems that this life form is an extremely powerful existence for them. But when they saw that Jia Yan, the flying life form, couldn't even resist him, and even killed him at will, all of these life forms were moved. Invincible. Run away. A member of the Lukafu convoy on the outside of the convoy encirclement was carrying a rocket-like weapon on its shoulders. To kick up your legs is to run fast. His speed is not bad, but for a big mosquito, this speed is child's play. The big mosquito moved. Go in pursuit. Under such pursuit, Jia Yan had an idea brewing in his mind for a long time. At this point it finally became clear. Since there are so many these convoys and more forces lurking on the edge of the desert and forest, why can't I use them all? Think of this. Jia Yan's compound eyes full of wisdom had an even stronger glow. Now that he has conquered Anulu's team. If it proves that they are not unconquerable, then is it possible to conquer one more, or even 2 more? 3. Of course, there is a limit to this subjugation, which is to try not to attract the attention of those officials and the military. Even then, there may be many forces that can be conquered. Jia Yan thought, wouldn't it be a better way to use more fleets or similar forces to serve him than just using Anulu's fleet? In this way, the time for him to recover energy may be greatly advanced. If he is lucky enough to find something with powerful energy that is useful to him, even if he undergoes another mutation, it is not a fantasy. Even if possible, he might be able to use them to get a chance to return to Earth. Under the extremely fast pursuit in the air, Jia Yan's mind was already spinning, and he immediately thought of so many things. You bastard! Looking for death, the soldier who was running away with his weapon suddenly came to his side when he saw the big mosquito behind him. He couldn't help but scream in shock. This monster is also a guy with a crocodile head, but his strength is definitely not inferior to the previous 6-armed life form. At this time, in fear, his strength burst out, and it may even reach more than 200% of his own strength. Level. As he ran quickly, large tracts of yellow sand sputtered up under his feet, and his speed also received a huge bonus. It seemed that the speed reached more than 500 kilometers per hour on the earth. You know, he is running on the ground, and his powerful leg strength is simply incredible. At the same time, this monster also raised the weapon he was carrying, pointed it at the approaching large mosquito, pressed the button, and launched the attack. The gray laser lit up, and a burst of gray energy headed towards Jia Yan. This crocodile-headed monster is looking forward to a miracle in his heart. After all, this gray energy is already the strongest attack of the weapon in his hand. If he could shoot down the flying monster with one shot, he would be saved. Phew. The big mosquito looked at the gray energy coming from the shot, with a sparkling light in his compound eyes. At this time, a different color appeared in his eyes, and a flash of brilliance appeared. At the same time, the giant mosquito didn't dodge and hit directly, causing the gray light to hit the center of his head impartially. A huge explosion sounded. The yellow sand in the sky rose into the sky, and this gray light attack was indeed the attack that the crocodile monster had been waiting for a long time, and the damage it caused was extremely powerful. He must be dead. Even if he doesn't die, he is seriously injured. A crazy expression appeared on the crocodile-headed life form. He stopped and rubbed his feet against the ground, causing a huge uproar in the yellow sand. He stopped, thinking that if the big mosquito was only seriously injured but not dead, he would step forward to make up for it. He stared at the smoke and dust gradually dissipating in front of him. At the same time, the battle here also caused the two sides in the war to pause. The entire fighting battlefield that stretched for several kilometers seemed to have solidified at this time. Everyone was looking at this place, watching whether the powerful flying monster was reduced to ashes in the powerful explosion. The wait for these people did not last long. In other words, there is no time to wait at all. Boom 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 boom. The crocodile monster, staring at the grey sand with wide eyes, suddenly appeared a sharp and huge thing. This thing kept magnifying before his eyes, and kept magnifying. It sounds slow, but in fact it only takes a moment. Phew! That sharp thing pierced directly into his chest. The crocodile monster didn't even have time to react. He looked at the dark, slender thing that pierced his chest. Trembling with pain, he raised his head and looked at the owner of this slender thing. In front of his head is a pair of cold compound eyes. What kind of eyes are these? The ice is so cold that it makes people shudder. What kind of power is this? In their convoy, the single most powerful 500 Kukla caliber electromagnetic gun, equivalent to 500 mm on Earth, was unable to cause even a little damage to it. Even his two seemingly fragile tentacles cannot be hurt at all. Where did the Alu's team find such a powerful monster? Phew! The big mosquito gently stabbed its front foot into the opponent's chest and pulled it out. The blood spurted out without any need for money, but he didn't care at all. He just retracted his front foot lightly and at the same time returned his side to the battlefield. Submit to me and or die. He calmly used the power of his brain waves to make his declaration. And this brainwave power is actually clearly transmitted to the ears of all nearby living beings. This is another place where Jia Yan has become stronger recently. His previous brainwave power transmission method could only cover a range of a few hundred meters. However, after De Fune's guidance and his own continuous thinking, he now with his brainwave power, he has been able to transmit sound accurately within 1 or 2 kilometers. All life forms on both sides of the war within these 2 kilometers can hear his voice. Such powerful brainwave power is enough to prove his power. How, this, can have such a powerful brainwave power? This is several times more powerful than I thought before. What kind of monster is he? Not only the people in the Lukafu convoy were horrified, but also the people in the Oryx convoy were extremely surprised. Oryx, who was riding in a best protected tank, showed his astonishment that could not be concealed. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 418. Bye, you did it. The fourth update has more than 10,000 words, so tired. Thank you again for your tips and subscriptions. Next, I will order 200 for each book. I hope that book friends who have not subscribed to this book will come to subscribe to the official version. When the average order reaches 200 or more, there will be another 4 updates. Thank you. Before this, Alus thought that this flying monster was just a creature that relied on some special abilities to barely escape with its life when being chased by several of the sheriff's aircraft. But what he never expected was that the other party was actually such a being with powerful brainwave power. Even before, he could withstand the bombardment of the 500 Kukla caliber electromagnetic gun. You know, that was equivalent to the power of the medium caliber vehicle mounted electromagnetic gun in their fleet. So powerful. Involuntarily, a cold feeling rose up on his back. This monster's super strength was beyond his expectation. God knows what the origin of such a powerful monster is. At the same time, everyone in the Lokafu motorcade was also horrified. This Aluz, where did you find this monster? The brainwave power is actually so powerful. The leader of Lukafu's motorcade, Lukafu himself, also stared at the eyes on his crocodile head. He was also frightened by the strength of the big mosquito. But not long after, when he saw the dead crocodile-headed monster on the ground, he had a crazy look on his face. But this guy actually killed my only brother who escaped from the research institute together. No matter how powerful he is, I will still kill him. A fierce light appeared in his eyes. Lower the main gun for me. There was cruelty in his eyes. But the life form driving next to him showed a frightened expression, but not long before he raised his doubts, a fist struck in front of him very quickly. Boom! The life form died immediately, and Luo Krafu came to the driver's seat. After killing one of his comrades, the madness in his eyes became even more obvious. At this time, I looked at the big mosquito not far away. Press a red button in the car. Bang 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 bang. In the body of their vehicle, a dark muzzle slowly rose. Jia Yan, 1 kilometer away, also saw the appearance of this thing. He just snorted coldly in his heart. Then the murderous intention emerged in the compound eyes. He has not carried out real killings yet, just because he feels that he wants to conquer these life forms. I just want to keep as many warriors who are good at fighting as possible to work for me. But if there are still those who resist him, he doesn't mind killing them once. After all, these aliens. For him, killing has no psychological burden at all. What's more, he, who belongs to the Earth's life species, will be friends or foes with these alien life forms from now on. Still, God knows what. It is said that there are many similar groups in this place, and he does not think about killing a convoy. There will be no one to conquer. So Jia Yan calmly took the first step. And that chariot over there is a chariot with a height of more than 10 meters, and his body is in this convoy of 300 chariots. It also belongs to the absolute tallest existence. If erected into a house, it would be able to expand to a height of more than 100 meters, which is not far behind the skyscrapers on Earth. At this moment, the gradually rising muzzle on the top of the vehicle body has raised its dark hole, aiming at the big mosquito 1 kilometer away. The gray-yellow sand was blown by the breeze, and the body of the big mosquito showed no fear in the face of hundreds of chariots. The huge car body, surrounded by large and small vehicles, at this time, raised its huge cannon and aimed directly at the big mosquito. This is a terrifying giant cannon with a length of 13 or 4 meters and a muzzle diameter of about 1.5 meters. The heartbeats of all living creatures slowed down by half a beat. The people in the Alu's team were shouting depressedly from the bottom of their hearts. Isn't that monster a flying life form? Why are you standing on the ground now instead of flying to avoid it? Faced with a main gun level attack, even the sheriff's aircraft would not dare to challenge its edge. If you don't use the advantage of flying to avoid it, it will definitely be extremely dangerous. However, their voices could not be transmitted to the big mosquito, and everyone could only watch the change of the situation in annoyance, extremely nervous. Boo! Finally, the main gun of the huge car body launched an attack. The energy it emits is a gray light with a hint of golden color. The diameter of this light is extremely exaggerated, reaching the terrifying range of 1.5 meters, which is equal to the diameter of the muzzle. At the time of launch, the sky and the earth seemed to change color. Lines of electromagnetic firelight are constantly peeling and making a sound in the air. At the time of launch, the sky suddenly lit up. The huge car body was pushed backwards due to the recoil caused by launching this attack. Just before the golden gray light arrived, the big mosquito suddenly moved. Jia Yanfu's eyes were cold, and he just moved his feet. Swish, brush, brush. Everyone only saw that before the light came, the giant mosquito's towering hill-like body turned into an after-image. Boom boom boom. The incredible attack exploded to the ground and lifted up the entire desert edge near the forest. Large tracts of sand and dust, as if the sky and the earth were upside down, overturned directly, like a sand rain falling all over the sky, turning the world into gray and fine sand. A curtain of sand was like a tsunami, swallowing up large areas of gray-yellow trees. The scene was extremely terrifying, and the explosion spread hundreds of meters, changing the landscape and scenery. Ha ha ha. He must be dead, brother, I avenged you. Seeing the apocalyptic explosion scene in front of him and a kilometer away, a humanized and crazy smile appeared on the crocodile's face. But all the people in the cars around him did not smile like him. Instead, at this moment, they all felt a chill on their backs and looked around with their eyes, as if they were looking for something. They had clearly seen it before. When the golden gray light reached the flying monster, the monster was already moving, even leaving a little after image. Would a monster with such speed die easily under this attack? No one can believe it. I said, surrender, or die. At the moment when all the life forms were searching, a faint sound came from behind the convoys of both warring parties, in the opposite direction of the explosion. This voice was extremely familiar, and all living creatures were startled. Wasn't that the voice of the flying monster before? Follow the indifferent voice and look. I saw a dark life form standing there in the completely opposite direction of the explosion. Its body was still pitch black, its exoskeleton was shining brightly, and it seemed spotless. There was no sign of being affected by the explosion at all. What's even more frightening is that this monster actually came to their rear at an extremely fast speed while avoiding the explosion while all the living beings were watching. What kind of speed is this? He hasn't even started flying yet. Ah! Lukafo in the largest tank was already crazy. He continued to turn the muzzle, and the electromagnetic gun with a diameter of more than 1.5 meters was aimed at the big Mosquito behind. Boo! He pressed the gun button. Golden gray light appears. Before the cannon fire was sent out, a group of life forms saw a wave of movement in the air behind them. Boom 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 boom. After that, golden gray light struck in that direction. You won't die this time. The craft crocodile had a crazy expression on its head, and saliva was flowing from its sharp teeth. But a kind of life form still looked to their left with an incredible expression. There. A huge dark body is hidden in the dust, revealing its shadow. It's the flying monster. He actually dodged another electromagnetic light attack in full view of everyone. You can, try again. The deep sparkle in Jia Yanfu's eyes became brighter and brighter. He stood under the attention of all the monsters and slowly released his brainwave power. Go to hell. Sure enough, Luo Kafu here still refused to give up and pressed the activation button of the light. The muzzle of the main gun suddenly lit up with an extremely bright light. Boo! The fourth update is completed. Please subscribe, please subscribe. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito author, Buletin U. Chapter 419. Please subscribe. A golden gray light reaching a thickness of 1.5 meters was shot at the huge flying monster over there. But this time, the monsters with better eyesight all discovered it. That extremely powerful flying monster didn't move. Boom 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 boom. At the moment when they couldn't believe it, the explosion sounded violently. In the light that reaches the sky, it seems like a powerful wall appears in front of all the life forms. In the yellow sand in the sky, the golden gray light seemed to hit an invisible wall. The crazy sound of collision resounded throughout the sky, causing the nearby chariots to be overturned by the shock wave. The yellow sand is still spreading all over the sky, and the deafening sound makes the yellow sand overturn, almost turning the whole world into a world of sand. This. A soldier from both sides of the motorcade almost lost his words when he saw the sudden scene. Luo Kafu over there also had a crazy look on his face after seeing the scenery, and he immediately regained his clarity. Instead, there was a look of horror. What kind of monster is this? He had never seen an appearance before, and had never even heard of it. He had no idea that this monster was a type that other aliens could not see with their own eyes. Except for a few former representatives of the Earth, they were probably the ones who lived there back then. Those exploration ships that go to Earth may guess Jia Yan's identity. But for those people, even if Jia Yan stood in front of them, the exploration ship probably couldn't believe that he was a mutation of that little mosquito on Earth. After all, to them, the Earth mosquito is just a primitive life form with a small size and no evolutionary potential. Apart from its appearance, how can it be compared with this extremely powerful giant mosquito monster? On this planet, she is probably the only woman named Delphine. The origin of the giant mosquito. Have a clear understanding. The mystery of Big Mosquito is now unknown to all convoys and even all forces. And unknown things are the most terrifying not only for humans. Even for these aliens, it is an invisible pressure. Boom 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 boom. Heaven and earth finally return to peace. Behind the sky full of yellow sand, there is a huge body. Finally, he gradually revealed his figure again. This figure. It looks even more majestic and unbelievable than before. The yellow sandy ground in front of Jia Yan. Completely swallowed by the light of the explosion. Some of the yellow sand was even burned into a dark black substance by the hot flames. In front of him was a huge explosion pit with a diameter of 50 or 60 meters, but this pit spread to the front of his body. But there is another different rhythm, that is, there is a cut-off directly there, as if Jia Yan has placed an invisible wall in front of his body. Jia Yan stood in front of the pit. In front of his body, there was still a faint brainwave power spreading. Although he was very sure that if this kind of gray light with a diameter of 1.5 meters hit his body, it would not cause any damage to him, but he did not want to do that. After all, the attack on his body would give him such a strong shock. But decreased. Now using the power of brain waves to defend against explosions similar to the self-destruction power of metal monsters on the Earth, it actually consumes a lot of his brain wave power. But the effect is naturally enough. Look at all the living things. Whether they were members of the Lokafo motorcade or the members of the Alus motorcade who knew of their existence, they were all riding in the car. They looked at Jia Yan's body that was faintly hidden in the dust and gradually regained its clarity. Such a look of stunned, frightened, uncontrollable look. Let me ask you again, surrender or death? Katong. A soldier from the Lokafo convoy not far from Jia Yan dropped the weapon in his hand. Jia Yan looked at this guy with satisfaction and saw that he was a man with 3 children and the same 3 pairs of eyes. With this 3-mouthed monster as the leader, the life forms of the Lokafo convoy closest to Jia Yan finally began to disarm. Naturally, some of the chariots far away from Jia Yan wanted to rely on their own speed and concealment to escape quietly. But Jia Yan told the opponent with his actions that even if he was running on the ground, his speed was not something that these tanks could look down upon. Most of those escaping chariots thought that Jia Yan would ignore little characters like them, but who would have thought that Jia Yan had already begun to conquer them, so it was naturally impossible for him to let go of all the chariots that appeared in front of him. In other words, it is killing the chicken to scare the monkeys. When the life forms that wanted to escape died in his blood-stained front feet. All the life forms in the Lokafo convoy are finally honest. Those who were unwilling to surrender were also conquered by iron blood. Although the soldiers in the 50 tanks of the Oryx team did not see their old enemies being massacred by Jia Yan, they now saw those once arrogant opponents, all of whom looked like a frightened kitten, trembling in front of him is a great relief. They began to follow Jia Yan's order and began to disarm the Lokafo living beings. Today is the Oryx convoy, a huge change since the last time it was attacked by the sheriff's aircraft. When the 50 chariots separated from the large convoy, as well as the big mosquitoes in the sky, attacked together, the entire convoy was excited, but also worried. Kaga, do you think they can win? That's the Lokafo racing team. After Jia Yan left, Lulu got down from the roof of the largest car, pulled a friend of hers, sat under the giant car, and asked in a somewhat depressed tone. As an orphan, she has received a lot of different compliments these days. After all, she is the only one in this convoy who can talk to the big mosquito. Sitting next to her is a life race that, at first glance, looks similar to Earthlings. Yes, he is the Asta people. Although this life race now occupies most of the entire planet, the Asta people, most of them become a main body on the planet, but no place can be perfect everywhere. So one or two Asta orphans appeared in the poor areas. It's not impossible. He is a boy of about 7 or 8 years old. He looks about the same age as Lulu. In addition, he has many similarities in body shape and appearance, so he is in this team. They are each other's best friends. I will definitely win, but I don't know if that powerful monster, Mr., will be unable to do his job. Kajia did not have much doubt about the fighting power of the big mosquito, although the monster did not show its power. But since the leader of the team, Alois, agreed with the other party, it was probably not bad. The only thing he worries about is the big mosquito after he goes to war. Reluctant to use all his strength, after all, there will definitely be casualties in a fight. If that big mosquito doesn't work hard, the casualties here may be too great. After all, Alois only sent 50 vehicles. In the past, the entire army was dispatched, but it was unable to wipe out the small convoy of Lukafu, even though the number was far less than that of the opponent. That would definitely be worse. Kaga speaks like an adult, so awesome. Lulu listened to Kajia's words, as if she had discovered something new about the other party, with a hint of surprise. Nakajia was immediately embarrassed. After all, as a boy, he must have a better understanding of the way of chariots than a child like Lulu. After a few words of conversation, the two children started fighting. Look! They're back. The voices of the adults drew the attention of the two children away from the fight. They both quickly climbed onto the huge chariot and looked into the distance. I saw in the distant sky, a land of yellow sand where dust gathered, and a long dragon slowly marching across the dusty sky. The two children looked at the scene over there with their mouths open, a little surprised by the courage of their own team. No, this is not the leader's motorcade. Suddenly, Lulu, who had extremely beautiful eyes, suddenly screamed. It's not the leader's convoy. What kind of convoy is it? Kajia on the side was also shocked. In his opinion, the absolutely foolproof action must have failed. You two little guys don't have to guess. That's Mr. Monster. He has subdued all the craft racing team. From now on, they will merge with us and greatly increase our strength. There was an adult alien life form explaining to two little kids under the car. Obviously, after approaching the convoy here, Alois and others over there used an ultra-long distance transmitter to pass the message to the side. The two little kids listened to the news in a daze, and their eyes widened in even more surprise. Although they are children, they have a certain understanding of the archenemy Lawcraft's convoy. That is, the combat effectiveness of the Lawcraft convoy is definitely not inferior to their own. Today, only 50 small tanks were dispatched. Just conquer them. Boom boom boom. Just when they were all surprised and digesting the news, they suddenly heard a strong wind blowing from above their heads. A huge body that covered the sky gradually descended from the sky. It must be this monster. Only he can make the extremely powerful Lokafu fleet surrender. Seeing the return of this behemoth, this thought flashed through the two children's hearts. Although Jia Yan returned to the convoy here, he did not give up his vigilance against the defeated troops approaching the Lokafu convoy. However, he was not wary of the opponent's attack, but guarded against someone escaping. After completing this matter and successfully forcing the craft convoy to surrender, he returned with a clearer idea of his idea in his heart. These drug-growing convoys, as well as those small forces walking on the edge of the forest and in the desert, are definitely something he can use. On this disordered planet, the two main alien forces are in the middle of a war. For other forces, there are definitely huge loopholes here, so there are definitely things he can do. Many. It's even possible that other forces are already doing similar things. That's right. For the time being, I can only reach out to those small convoys with no obvious powerful forces behind them, as well as those small forces. Anyway, my idea is not to compete for any rights, but to create a new environment for my next mutation. It's just a safe and convenient environment. Thinking of this, Big Mosquito's idea became more and more clear. There is also a plan for the next route. If I get the support of these forces, the most basic thing is to rely on them first to obtain those intermediate or even high-level nutrient solutions. After all, on this gray-yellow star, this thing has been proven to be effective for me. If I can get some nutrient solution, my energy can be restored as soon as possible. The next thing after recovering my energy is to look for other things that are useful to me, such as the energy sources of those aircraft and those powerful energy substances. As long as I find some of these things and hoard them, maybe on this planet, I can maybe a mutation. After thinking about this, the Big Mosquito's compound eyes were full of sparkling light. There is even more sparkle. He knew that his fighting power now might not even be comparable to that of himself on Earth. But the brainwave power is definitely much stronger, as long as he is given a large amount of nutrient solution. Then restoring energy only takes a matter of minutes. He lost most of his energy this time, which is not without benefits. The first benefit is that Jia Yan's previous mutations were actually a little too fast. The continuous mutations of his body were a bit counterproductive. So many times after mutation, the sequelae left behind are not so easy to recover from. This requires his body to repair itself for a long time. However, the mutation interval was too short in the past, so there were too many malformed organs in Jia Yan's body, and some even damaged his brain. Therefore, when the power of brain waves was released, Jia Yan always felt a throbbing pain in his head. However, after a period of energy shortage, Jia Yan's pace of mutation and progress slowed down, so that his body had a time to rest and self-adjust. After all, as the body of an evolved beast, its ability to self-adjust is absolutely unparalleled. Of all living things, after the body stays for a period of time and solves this problem, the next path of mutation and evolution can be broader, and even lead to the real starry sky beast path. The second benefit of this mutation stay is that Jia Yan can become more accustomed to the fact that the mutation time will be greatly extended in the future. After all, for a being as powerful as him, not only will the adjustment time required for each mutation of the body gradually increase, but the things needed for future mutations will also be more difficult to find. If you want to evolve to the starry sky, the giant beast was so powerful that Jia Yan didn't even know how powerful it would be in the end to reach such a terrifying level of power. So he can't be anxious. Delaying it for a while this time is also a test for his state of mind. Okay, after thinking so much, my true intention has been revealed. I still want to undergo the next mutation. Such an anxious attitude is not good. Jia Yan was crawling on top of the car body where he had been crawling for the past few days. His compound eyes looked at the two convoys getting closer and closer over there, and he seemed to see the day when these convoys were rapidly delivering mutant nutrients to him. If we can carry out the next mutation. Jia Yan suddenly thought of this. It's not that he is arrogant. If he recovers all his energy and unleashes his brainwave power and body's powerful defense, he is sure to defeat the white life form he met last time. Jia Yan didn't know the identity of that white life form, but it was definitely not a small person. Since you can defeat her as long as you restore energy, what about another mutation? Jia Yan doesn't know what level he will reach after the next mutation. He just knows that he will completely crush the white life form, and even the other party will become an ant-like existence in front of him. After all, his transformation has always been like this great leap forward. Just when Jia Yan was thinking a lot, the two convoys in the distance were slowly approaching the Alus camp here. This is the main formation of the Alus convoy. it is indeed several times larger than our Lukafu convoy. This is the convoy that was defeated by the sheriff. God knows how powerful they were originally. Their equipment is not bad, and joining such a team is not a bad thing for us. Each of the powerful life forms of the Lukafu convoy were disarmed, and some were allowed to drive small tanks. The powerful individuals were tied to the back one by one and lined up to enter the Oryx convoy camp. The people in the Lukafu team over there looked at the life forms here one by one, and the people in the Alus team here looked at the people in the Lukafu team even less curiously. They all learned from the broadcast of their chariots or vehicles that the Lukafu convoy was subdued by the powerful Mr. Monster. The members here jumped out of their bodies one by one and looked at the disarmed members of the Lukafu team with great curiosity. Are these the soldiers of the Lukafu convoy? They are so powerful. They may not even have 5,000 people, but they can defeat us so many times. No matter how powerful they are, what can they do? To the powerful Mr. Monster, they are still children and they have to be subdued. An Ulu's convoy that still has more than 20,000 life forms, plus about 5,000 members of the Lukafu convoy, the entire huge convoy has almost reached the 30,000 population mark. However, the task of subduing is not that simple. Compared with the simplicity of the Ulu's team, the Lukafu team reluctantly surrendered after a head-on battle. It is not easy for them to work for Jiayan. Even the Alus team used to talk about cooperation, but team leader Alus found that things were like boiling frogs in warm water. Now, even though he talks about cooperation, in fact he is basically the subordinate of the big Mosquito. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 420. But think about it from another perspective. Under the control of such a powerful life form, as long as they don't provoke those powerful forces, wouldn't their future life be much easier? In this case, it can be regarded as a good thing. Being controlled was unavoidable anyway, so Alus could only think on the bright side. The bustling integration work continued until nightfall on this planet. It is not possible for everyone in Lukafu to simply obey for the time being, but Jia Yan's next plan can't wait to continue. So he called Alus to the top of the car where he was. The night was so peaceful. Looking at the faintly suspended brown dwarf in the distant starry sky, Jia Yan looked around. Next to him, Alus looked more respectful. Through this period of observation, he knew, this is a frogman with no big pursuits. Oh Lux, from today on, the name of this team will be officially changed to Team Earth. Do you agree? He said lightly. Change your name. When Alus heard this, his heart trembled. Sure enough, this Mr. Monster can't let his team go easily. However, he had already been mentally prepared for this matter when he was called here by the big Mosquito. So he was not moved at this time. But, what the hell is the Earth Fleet? Of course, Alus didn't know what the so-called Earth meant, and thought it was a unique name for the big Mosquito. Okay, sir, from now on this team will be officially renamed Team Earth. He nodded helplessly. At this time, the situation was stronger than that of others. He was originally a puppet-like figure. The team no longer used his name, but it was also one less hassle. You are very aware of current affairs. Now that the name of the convoy has been changed, I have to make some military adjustments. There may be some expeditions in the near future. I am planning to form a team called the Earth Army. I hope you can help me when the time comes. Coordinate. If you do a good job, I won't treat you badly. Jia Yan found that he felt a little awkward saying such words. After all, he has never been a so-called superior person, and he is suddenly asked to manage something. It seems a little green. Yes, the little one will definitely work like a dog and a horse. Alus did not notice the awkwardness in his words, but only for Jia Yan's words. Take it all in. Also, I don't know how to address you, sir. After some hesitation, Alus asked hesitantly. After all, as an actual leader, it would be a bit unreasonable if everyone didn't even know the name of this life form. Fortunately, Jia Yan was startled. Immediately tell Alus and everyone in the convoy. You can call him an assassin. This name was given to him by his battle pet Bai, and now it seems that it is a very suitable name. Although the original intention of Nabi Arena was that he was like the champion assassin who suddenly rose up, what Jia Yan thought of was his own front foot. After all, his attacks have always been more stabbing with his front feet, so his name as an assassin somewhat fits the bill. After talking about other things, Jia Yan felt a little impatient. After all, he didn't have much contact with such things before, and now he doesn't want to spend too much energy on it. In essence, he is still a living being who wants to become stronger. He is not very concerned about external objects yet. After seeing Jia Yan's impatience, Alus immediately understood that this was an unruly master. This news is good news for him. A person in power who doesn't care about others can always give his subordinates greater rights. Maybe in the future he will be inferior to one person, 10,000 people, or even superior to millions of people. Big shot. After saying something again, the big frog's eyes widened, and after waiting for a long time, he hesitated and added the last sentence. Master Assassin, Nail Yukafu must die. Although this man is powerful in combat, he acts recklessly and refuses to be inferior to others. If he doesn't die, he will cause trouble one day. This time, Jia Yan really stared at this guy silently. He likes that he doesn't hide his thoughts and speaks directly. That night, the former leader of Lokafu's convoy, the crocodile-headed life form Lokafu, is in his chariot. That bastard monster. No. Although he is very powerful, he must have weaknesses. When I catch his weaknesses, I must avenge him. As he unarmed himself, as the leader of a convoy, his equipment was not a simple thing, but something that could withstand a small amount of damage such as shock waves. It's night, and sleep is naturally needed. Although the night on this planet, no matter which planet the life form comes from, feels a little longer, but in the middle of the night, no one has the mind to do anything else. And at the moment when Lukafu was cursing and wanted to lie down on the bed, the powerful crocodile-headed leader suddenly felt that a shiny mosquito head seemed to appear outside the window of his chariot. What kind of monster is this? He has a slender mouth part, and even this mouth part is dripping with bright blood. His face changed wildly, and he was about to rush forward and pick up his weapon. But at the same time, phew! A crisp sound resounded in the air. Lukafu, who is known as the strongest player in the Lukafu racing team, actually had a crocodile head like this, bursting like a watermelon with a crisp sound. The weird purple blood and the foul-smelling internal organs were smeared all over the car body. At the same time, a huge body stood up from the car body he was riding on, slowly and quietly. His whole body was wrapped in a faint brainwave power. In this late night, he seemed to be more hidden and no one could notice it. After looking at the car with no vital signs with satisfaction, he floated lightly, flying towards the huge car body that belongs to him without a trace of life. The news about Lawcraft's death soon spread throughout the merged Earth convoy. The life forms were trembling one by one, looking at the huge monster crawling on the largest vehicle in the convoy. Although Aluz, who came forward to explain, said that Lukafu's death was due to an accident, everyone knew that this was what the terrifying monster did. This monster was actually able to kill a powerful warrior silently in the presence of so many living beings. How much strength does this require? How cruel does it take to kill a soldier who has surrendered to him? Some of the members of the Lukafu team were filled with indignation, even when they first learned about the incident. He made preparations to attack the assassin. But he didn't wait for them to take a few steps. The big mosquito in the distance flew straight up. He arrived in front of the members of the Lukafu team like lightning. Those who wanted to explode before were all killed by his front feet with a direct stab. This time, Everyone who had any thoughts of resistance fell silent. Under Jia Yan's personal strength, the voices of opposition and doubt gradually disappeared. Finally, the sun rose in the sky. Time has come to daylight again. One night passed, dozens of hours after Logocraft died. Everyone in the Locafu team seemed to have gotten used to the days of losing their leader, and became more obedient. At least that's what it looks like on the surface. Is this the nutrient solution you collected from the entire fleet? Why is it so small? Jia Yan looked in front of him. The 3 bottles of low-grade nutrient solution carefully placed asked a little strangely. It was Allos who brought them here. This frog monster became a little more confident after getting rid of his biggest enemy and gaining the real authority of this convoy. Master Assassin, our team doesn't need much nutrient solution. This is the maximum amount I can collect. Jia Yan looked at him and knew from the guy's face that he was not deceiving him, so he nodded. It's better than nothing. If you take 3 bottles, you can restore a certain amount of energy. At least you won't feel hungry all the time. Jia Yan collected these bottles into his belly and asked calmly again, so, how are you doing with the formation of the Earth Army? Jia Yan merged the 2 fleets in order to form a fighting team of his own. Now it's time to start a new one. As for the Earth's convoy and the Earth's army, these are all his own thoughts. He still regards the Earth as his hometown. The idea of forming this convoy and army is actually just because of his expectations for his next actions. There is a place to rely on, hoping that you can rely on them to collect what you want. In the end, we even relied on them to find a way to return to Earth. After all, it's just a kind of sustenance. It's impossible for anyone on this planet to think of his true identity through this, right? Of course, except for Daphne. Replying to your lord, I have already drawn up a list. The first army consists of combatants from my convoy, 5,000 regular troops. The second army consists of former members of Croft's convoy, 3,000 regular troops. Oh? If you are fighting on your own, aren't you afraid that the people in the Logocraft motorcade may have different intentions? Jia Yan immediately sensed something was wrong in these words. Master Assassin, I have also thought about that problem, but your request is to form combat effectiveness as soon as possible. If the formation of the 2 armies is disrupted, combat effectiveness cannot be formed all at once, so I thought about it and decided to use with this plan. I think the second army won't be able to do anything with your strength. Allos said. Jia Yan thought about it and felt relieved quickly. The situation of this Earth army was not that of a so-called army. Each of them had to unite under their own strong personal pressure. If he dares to have other thoughts, then he can simply suppress them. Okay, just do what you said and form a fighting force for me immediately. 1 day later, your first target will be the Solon motorcade that you reported before. Yes. When Allos heard Jia Yan's request, his expression changed and he quickly agreed. As a former convoy leader, when he heard Jia Yan's order, he knew that this assassin was definitely no longer a trivial person. The convoy he had just conquered actually only took 1 day to integrate, and he was about to put it to use. Not talking about the issue of loyalty, but only about the control of the team, or even the number of members, he didn't understand it. So eager to attack the next target. It can be seen that he is definitely a master who likes to fight. Maybe, I just want to fight all the way. I hope my judgment is not wrong. I don't know if taking refuge in such an existence will lead to death in the future. I will still be rich and powerful, but, I will fight. Allos thought. There is no way for him to escape. After all, there was actually a part of the living body before. Taking advantage of the darkness, I wanted to escape into the forest. That way you might be able to avoid the big mosquitoes. But their bodies are always discovered the next day. So gradually, all living things. They all gave up on that idea. Besides, the big mosquito has no other unreasonable requirements except to rule them. Although this can be interpreted as him making preparations for future demands, escape is impossible. All living beings no longer have the intention to escape. Where to go is not to live life hand to mouth. Under the hands of such a powerful life form, maybe he could live a better life. This is the tragedy of the week. Alouz, under Jia Yan's instructions, had already arranged for some people to go to various parts of the motorcade and start promoting the benefits of being under the big Mosquito. As for the benefits, it depends on what happens after the next battle. Not long after, the next day, the so-called Earth Army that had been reorganized was once again launched under the watchful eyes of a group of life forms. If this huge convoy really needs to be mobilized, it will be very easy to pull up an army of about 15,000 people. But those few thousand extra people are almost all old, weak, sick, and disabled, and they might even drag down the combat effectiveness. So as it is now, the regular army remains at a total of about 8,000 people. As for the rest, as a reserve force, this is the most reasonable. Jia Yan flew up from the huge car. His compound eyes were shining as he looked ahead. The battle convoy of 8,000 life forms, which he named the Earth Army, was now fully launched. In the sky full of yellow sand, there are car bodies of different sizes. You won't know until you see it, but you will be shocked when you see it. Jia Yan only had an understanding of the number of his men, but when they were transformed into a living army, the scene on the ground immediately made him, a big Mosquito who had always been calm, get excited. There were at least more than 1,000 chariots. They were of different sizes, and even the bodies had different specifications. Some were rusty, some were shiny, some were old, and some were brand new. It looks a bit complicated, but it is completely 1,000 chariots. 1,000 tanks are huge in scale, especially those with a length of 20 or 30 meters. Together with the escort vehicles around them, they are like an aircraft carrier battle group on the Earth. I believe their actual combat effectiveness is no better than that of the Earth's aircraft carriers. The battle group difference is even higher. The chariot dragon stirred up smoke and dust all over the sky in the yellow sand, and the mist towered into the sky. In the endless yellow sand, this chariot dragon was like a wild bull charging rampant in the sea of sand, trying to completely smash and tear everything in the way. The location of Thorin's convoy was not at the edge of the forest, but slightly closer to the interior of the desert. Although it can be regarded as a marginal area, compared with other teams, they are uniquely blessed because they sit on a huangzhou. Huangzhou is actually a place similar to an oasis in the Earth's desert, and it is located in a Grand Canyon. Although it is surrounded by yellow sand, when you walk into the canyon, there is a cave inside, with a forest-like environment. The Thorin racing team does not regard its home base as a place to grow poisons, but as a long-term residence. Their main money-making business is actually to act as a middleman for nearby racing teams. When there are some incidents or conflicts that cannot be solved by other teams, this Thorin team always jumps out to be the peacemaker. In addition, they are located in a place with a good environment, and there are some soldiers who have escaped from other convoys, as well as weak convoys who want to join. They all agree, so there are always convoys saying that this convoy is the best among more than a dozen convoys in the surrounding area. A powerful one. The members of Thorin's team obviously think so too. Even in this convoy, because the convoy owns a Grand Canyon that is equivalent to a permanent base, some members even claimed that they would create an underground country in this Grand Canyon. Even if the Thorin team that utters wild words does not have that strength, if they dare to say such words, then they are definitely not weak. Huangzhou Grand Canyon. This is a place that had no name before but is now called the Solin Grand Canyon. The circumference of this canyon is more than 15 kilometers. If you look down from the sky, the ground is slightly sunken, and the inside is full of gray-yellow trees that are different from the surrounding yellow sand. The density of the trees can be compared to those large forests full of gray-yellow trees. At this time, in this Grand Canyon, there are buildings one after another, standing tall among the ancient trees in the sky. It's just that their height is not higher than the surrounding trees, so if it looks from the high sky, it is still a dense forest, with no trace of anyone at all. This is the biggest magic weapon for this convoy to avoid the sheriff's eyes. After all, on this planet, there are energy shields from both warring parties. For all beings, it is difficult to detect them with the power of technology. What's more, even if this Grand Canyon looks extraordinary, in fact, there are at least 100 or 200 similar places in this vast desert. How could it attract the attention of the sheriffs? Haha, that Alo's team must be destroyed by the Lukafu team. That old guy Alo's refused to surrender to us before, and he is going to die now. I found that there are still many book friends who are struggling with my update. In fact, my one update is more than 5,000 words, which is equivalent to 2 updates. If you prefer 2 updates, then I'll restore one chapter to 2,500 words. Both chapters are the same 5,000 words. Which one do you like? You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 421. In a residence in the vast forest, several strange life forms gathered together, drinking some sweet drinks that were talked about by aliens. Of course, there is a question mark as to whether their so-called sweet taste is the same when people on Earth enjoy it. It's lucky that the Alu's convoy can survive to this day. It is said that on that day, a powerful monster appeared and attracted the attention of the sheriffs, allowing them to barely escape. Otherwise, they would not have been killed by Kofna. Guy got a bargain. Several life forms were sitting at the table and enjoying delicious food. These life forms were a frogman, a three-eyed monster, and one was actually a half-machine, half-beast life form. Among them, the frogman is about the same size as an average earthling, while the three-eyed monster has a stalwart body of about 3 meters. The half-machine, half-animal monster is over 5 meters tall. They devoured the food on the round table like gluttons. For ordinary aliens, different races generally have different requirements and tastes for food. It is rare for these monsters to have the same taste. Leaders. Oh no, the Lukafu convoy, no. It's the Lukafu and Ulu's convoys that are coming together to attack us. The moment when they were drinking and mingling, an alien life form acting as a messenger rushed towards this place. What? When the three heard this, they just couldn't believe it. It's just Lukafu and Alus, they dare. The three-eyed monster's first reaction was furious. Don't be impulsive. There must be monsters when things go wrong. They should understand that their strength is very different from ours. There must be a reason for daring to do this. We can't fight rashly. Let's go and see what their situation is like first. The frog monster was obviously more focused on his head, and his words calmed down the other two. The three monsters walked quickly towards the outside world. This is a canyon with a length and width of about 15 kilometers. There are thousands of vehicles in this canyon, and the actual combat capabilities of these vehicles are definitely not as simple as ordinary tanks. They are arranged regularly throughout the gray-yellow woods. There is an underlying charm to this. Foreign enemies who want to invade here will definitely be hit head-on, as well as semi-automatic artillery fire controlled by the central fire control system, even if a sheriff's aircraft does come. Maybe they would all be disgraced under this terrifying defense. This is also the real reason why these isolated Solon teams dare to call themselves the country. This is a relatively large and powerful group. Although most of the surrounding forces are still accustomed to calling them the convoy, since the Thorin convoy took route here 3 years ago. It becomes a convoy that is no longer moving, in fact. There are certain similarities with those large forces deep in the forests and deserts. If they are given a period of time to recuperate and grow stronger, maybe there really is a chance to become a huge force. But all this is impossible. Because Jia Yan is eyeing this place. Yes, Jia Yan passed those team information. Seeing this relatively close place, at first glance, he felt that this place must be attacked and used as a base camp for him in the future. He wouldn't care about the cost of the attack. If he hadn't been wary of some of the powerful means that Solin's team might have, Jia Yan would have destroyed this place by himself without even needing any help. Thousands of convoys were galloping forward. The yellow sand in the sky rose up noisily, and the earth seemed to have a yellow dragon, walking straight forward. Jia Yan was in the sky, watching all this with indifference in his compound eyes. The army below was indeed a force temporarily conquered by him, but Jia Yan had no sense of belonging to it. Although he took advantage of his own enthusiasm and said the term Earth Army, for them, Jia Yan still treated like a cannon fodder. After all, the difference in life levels was too big, and he didn't feel that he would have any feelings for these strange-looking life forms. But his behavior has invisibly increased the sense of mystery and fear among the life forms below, and the sense of mystery and fear towards him, the master assassin, has increased even more. After all, Jia Yan has always used an intimidating appearance as his way of doing things. The more mysterious and indifferent they are, the more fear they feel in those alien life forms. Just like now, Jia Yan's huge body is soaring in the sky. He has obviously flown into the clouds and tried his best to hide his figure. However, the life forms below are looking at the huge thing high in the sky. More and more, fear drives them to run faster. In fact, Jia Yan's body shape some time ago has always been hidden by a kind of brainwave power. He was lying on top of the largest car body of Oryx, although in the eyes of everyone in Oryx, it was equal to in full view below, but for more distant places, it is just a dark shadow that people can't help but miss. Therefore, no matter whether it was the previous Lokafo racing team or the current Solin racing team, no one knew that there was such a powerful life form among their opponents until Big Mosquito appeared in person. Leader. Do you think it's possible for us to escape from the control of this monster? It's definitely not possible the way we are now. He doesn't seem to treat us as his true confidants at all. In the chariot below, the leader of the Far Oryx convoy, the frog monster named Oryx, is currently riding in a chariot, surrounded by his subordinates who are asking questions. The other party can easily feel the way the Big Mosquito treats these life forms. In fact, in deserts and forests, annexation between forces is a very normal thing, but there is a difference between true annexation and false annexation. If Jia Yan really wanted to be the master of this fleet and run it sincerely, maybe these life forms that were forcibly subdued would not only not be disinterested, but would be happy to have such a powerful leader. But upon closer inspection, this assassin didn't care about them at all, and seemed to be abandoning them after using them. This living being couldn't help but have such doubts. Shut up. Can you arrange it, Master Assassin? Aluz's frog mouth made a sound, causing the men to stop talking. The subordinate fell silent, but his words still left a trace in the heart of Aluz, the frog man. This frog man has silence. In fact, alien life forms also have social structures. Just like the Earth society. There are all kinds of problems and all kinds of love and hatred. Jia Yan came to this planet and came into contact with aliens, maybe because of his personality. Even now, there is still a sense of withdrawing from the world. The feeling of looking at things around you with cold eyes. But in fact, he has already admitted in his heart that these alien life forms. They also have their own emotions, joys and sorrows. If you think of them as earthlings with strange heads, you can understand a little bit about these aliens. But Jia Yan is the kind of elm-headed person who doesn't want to deal with such things. I can't understand it yet. And Aluz also discovered something about the so-called Lord Assassin. There is an attitude of indifference towards everything outside. But the strength of this lord is definitely unmatched by Sakon. If he is really willing to develop in this desert and forest, Olux is a little jealous. If they can really move that adult's heart for hegemony, no one knows how far their current Earth army will develop in the future. I estimate that the forces that can compete with the powerful forces of the adults are the dozen or so powerful beings deep in the desert and the mysterious forces deep in the forest. The rest are just a joke to the adults. Even now, your strength may only be the tip of the iceberg. It is not certain whether the top 10 powerful beings can crush the assassin. Of course, the top 5 powerful beings are probably invincible. I have seen Lord Longwu among the top 10. His power is unbelievable. No matter how strong the assassin is, he is probably not as powerful as Lord Longwu. Lord Longwu is still a bit behind. It is said that Lord Longwu's strength can be ranked in the middle even among the army of the biochemical nation. Thinking of the legendary fifth strongest man in the desert, Lord Longwu, whom he had seen from afar, always trembled for a while. That kind of power was beyond his imagination. Although Lord Assassin is also unimaginably powerful and feels bottomless, he still feels that Lord Longwu should be stronger. The fifth person in the desert is so strong, and Alus cannot even imagine a more powerful life form, and it is said that it is among the top 5 powerful life forms. The degree of power is also different. Each of them has achieved their current status through countless killings. Each of them is a legendary existence in this desert and in the nearby forest. Of course, most of these existences have powerful forces at their disposal. After all, it has reached such a point that it is extremely difficult to become stronger. Although the general strength of these alien life forms still depends on genes and species. But hard work the day after tomorrow can also greatly affect the powerful level. Those powerful beings with some power would be a good choice to transport supplies to make themselves stronger in the future. It is said that there is a kind of monster in the interstellar world called the evolution beast. Its number is very small, but its evolutionary potential is almost unlimited. It may even become a starry sky monster that is a headache for any civilization. This kind of monster that defies the heavens cannot be. Do you know what kind of situation it is? Fortunately, there are not many such heaven-defying life forms in the interstellar world, and all civilizations are sniping at them. Otherwise, if a few of them evolve into giant beasts in the starry sky, what will happen in the starry sky? Isn't everything in chaos? Thinking of the powerful life forms, Alus shook his head helplessly. In this starry sky, although the powerful life forms are generally suppressed by the power of science and technology, everything is beneficial if the individual is strong, and now it is also the biochemical kingdom and the Zerg appeared. These races obviously had powerful technology, but they still relied on the physical body for basic combat, so individual strength was extremely important. As Alus was thinking, he had more reveries about the flying assassin above his head. What he said to his men before was actually a determination for him, that is, to sincerely assist this assassin. Lord Assassin, Your Excellency cannot conquer them without asking for anything. As long as there is demand, then it is time for him to continue to show his loyalty. In the future, if Your Excellency relies on his own strength and controls more territory, then he can also ascend to heaven. Indefinite. Although he has always been the leader of a small team before, Alus still has certain ambitions. Huangzhou appears ahead. The station of Thorin's convoy has arrived. Suddenly, the Pathfinder vehicle in front. Information was reported. Alus was startled. Then the ruthlessness passed away in a flash. If he wants the assassin to value him more and consolidate his position in the Earth Army, then he has to show some achievements. At the same time, Jia Yan, who was above the sky, also saw the yellow sand in the sky below. A vast place, similar to the Earth's desert oasis, appeared in his sight. Of course, they are similar. But in fact there is a big difference. The first is the color. There are many gray-yellow trees in Huangzhou. It is connected with the sand and gravel, and if it flies quickly in the sky, it is likely to be missed. The second point is vastness. Most of the oases in the deserts on Earth occupy a small area. There is a certain water source in the center, and there are only a few trees growing sparsely nearby, but this is Huangzhou here. But there are trees in the area, with a radius of 15 kilometers. No wonder Naolux once said that the Thorin convoy seems to be developing and growing here. The environment is perfect. It's a pity that aliens have taken over. Let's use it as my base. Jia Yan saw this and felt even more satisfied with this place in his heart. When he heard about the existence of this place before, he immediately had an idea, but he didn't expect that this place was better than he imagined. And there is another thing that makes him even more jealous, that is, in addition to the excellent territory of the Thorin convoy, according to Ulus, the materials they possess are also the most abundant among the 7 or 8 nearby forces. In fact, Jia Yan would mobilize his subordinates to attack this place because when he asked Ulus for nutrient solution, the other party said that a certain number of battle pets were tamed for entertainment here in Salin's convoy, and the surrounding areas the nutrient solution is also sold through them, so I definitely have a lot of nutrient solution. This reason alone is enough for Jia Yan to send troops to attack them. The nutrient solution that others look down upon is definitely an excellent thing for Jia Yan to restore his energy. Boom 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 boom. A group of cars drove roaringly forward. But the distant Huangzhou also reacted at this time. This Thorin convoy is indeed the most powerful force nearby. They seem to have known about the arrival of the Earth Army for a long time. It has been treated seriously for a long time. The defensive artillery trucks lined up in a row, neatly arranged in front of the Earth's military convoy, seemed like a ferocious beast that only chose people to eat, trying to bite the flesh and blood of its opponents. Seeing the gun carriages of Salin's convoy here, everyone has not yet recovered from their surprise, but the other party has already taken action. There was a rough voice in the public channel of the communicator, speaking in the Ostal language. "O Lux, Lukafu, what do you two want to do? Are you someone you can mess with me here? If you go back to wherever you came from, I will not hold you responsible now. If you take one step forward, don't blame me for killing them all." The voice on the other side was extremely rough and wild, as if the sound was coming from a clay pot, making a roaring sound. Jia Yan was flying at an altitude of 10,000 meters. He had the signal enhancement receiver of the signal vehicle below, so he could also hear the sound from the communicator below. He turned around and took advantage of his vision to see a 5-meter-tall half-mechanical, half-living monster behind the Thorin gun truck. He was holding a walkie-talkie and making a sound. Mechanical life? Jia Yan suddenly thought that among the interstellar civilizations nearby, he seemed to have heard that there was a mechanical civilization. However, that civilization had just emerged in just a few decades, and it was a civilization that all civilizations were afraid of, because this civilization was created through they were finally established after destroying the mother civilization that created them and devouring the nutrients in the entire civilization. This kind of civilization is a threat to all civilizations. No, it's just a life form that uses the power of science and technology to transform itself. It is said that such a life form is not very popular on this warring barren planet because the cost of transformation is extremely expensive. However, it is extremely popular among other interstellar civilizations. Popular because many life forms can rely on this external force to increase their combat effectiveness to an unbelievable level. After Jia Yan saw the half-mechanical, half-living monster, he looked at it for a brief moment. But after a while, Jia Yan didn't feel any threat from him, so he stopped paying attention indifferently. After all, as a powerful life form of his level, and possessing more and more sophisticated brainwave power, he has a vague judgment on the strength of his opponent, at least he can judge it if the difference is too big. So as soon as he observed it, he knew that this cyborg, even though it looked scary, posed no threat to him at all. Look at the tanks of Thorin's convoy below. The ones in front are all gun carriages that fire artillery fire. Olux's convoy also had some of these vehicles, but they were far away. Not so much. They are not very mobile, but they have a muzzle that reaches 1000 kukla, 1000 millimeters, which can achieve continuous fire. Once such a large number are launched together, it is definitely a terrifying thing. Moreover, this kind of artillery carriage also has strong protection. Generally, Xiao Xiao cannot break through their defense. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 422. In addition to the artillery carts in front that act as human shields, behind these artillery carts are smaller tanks. At this time, they all started their engines. As long as the battle ahead starts, it will roar out under the cover of artillery fire. Just by looking at these, Jia Yan knew that the Earth army he brought with him were no match at all and were not even worthy of carrying someone's shoes. Even the combat effectiveness of those individual soldiers, Jia Yan found, was completely above the level of his own Earth army. With such a huge contrast, it is no wonder that the cyborg life form that spoke before was so angry that he laughed instead. However, the other party must also have guessed that if Allos and others dared to attack like this, they must have some backup plan. That's why they had been more cautious before. As long as Allos led his men to withdraw, they would not pursue him. After all, in this desert where strong men and powerful forces dominate, although Thorin's team is considered to be middle class and upper class, it is still far from being truly powerful. They couldn't help but be careless. Haha, the dignified Lord Thorin would actually bow his head to us? But we understand Lord Thorin's kindness. The environment of this Grand Canyon is excellent. If Lord Thorin is willing to lead the team to leave immediately, we naturally don't have to how about fighting together. Oryx was riding in his chariot, speaking in a slightly difficult Asta accent. Opposite the communicator, the semi-mechanical life form instantly crushed the intercom device in its hand to pieces. What a great Allos! This guy sounds much more arrogant than before. The frogman on the other side also has a disdain in his mouth. Although I don't know why it wasn't Luikafo who spoke out, no matter what back tricks Allos has, we can't lose. Head, if we don't destroy them, everyone will think that we are easy to bully in the future. Now, we just want to kill the chicken to scare the monkeys and let the surrounding forces know that we are not just someone we can tease. Okay. What's more, the backup we have is beyond what these forces can imagine. That half-animal, half-mechanical monster was actually the leader of Thorin's convoy. But he is indeed strong enough to serve as a team leader. After a while, he issued an order, and then the surrounding life forms also took action. Chariots hidden deep in the forest gathered one by one. There is no wind in the sea of trees. The trees swayed and rustled. Some life forms are running in the woods at this time. Some of them are powerful and cannot be underestimated. Some of them are familiar with the hiding places in the bushes. Faintly. This powerful fleet has a population of no less than 50,000. And these 50,000 are not the old, weak, sick, and disabled units of the Oryx team. Each one of them is a strong and powerful being. Under normal circumstances, Ulus and Lukafu racing team. Even if they gather together, it is impossible to defeat such a powerful team. It's a blessing not to be wiped out. What a Thorin convoy! Even if they haven't fought yet, just look at their pre-battle actions. You can tell they are no ordinary fighting group. Jia Yan was flying in the sky, looking at the fighting groups in the sea of trees below, as well as the artillery fire, and secretly gave a bad review to the convoys that belonged to him below. An expert will know if there is one as soon as he takes action. The comparison between the two is really worlds apart. Jia Yan previously thought that the two teams he controlled were definitely powerful forces, but now when he looks at the Solon team, he knows that there is still a huge gap. No wonder this team is said to be the strongest within a radius of more than 100 kilometers, but I didn't expect it to be so strong. Jia Yan looked down. He was not afraid of the strength of those guys, but thinking about the anti-aircraft fire that the other party might have and the technological weapons that might be able to hurt him, he still resisted the idea of taking action directly. At least most of the attention of Thorin's convoy personnel must be drawn to the Earth Army before they make plans to take action. Boom boom boom. The Earth Army here has already started. At this time, they still have great confidence in their victory. After all, they have an assassin who is probably equivalent to the strength of the top 10 strongest people in this desert. They all believe that if the assassin takes action, even if the Solon team has some other backup players, it will never be able to defeat it. After all, most of them have seen with their own eyes the assassin who can use brainwaves. The power can resist the powerful defense of the large-caliber electromagnetic gun. As for the matching attack power, they have not seen it with their own eyes, but it is definitely not bad when they think about it. With the speed of the assassin, even if he picks up a stone and throws it, it is an incredible attack, not to mention the assassin. The adults obviously have more than this kind of attack power. Those dazzling pair of sharp front feet are definitely not a decoration. It was used to attack several tanks of the Lukafu convoy before, so it was probably just a small test. However, none of them knew that the powerful monster flying in the sky had already made plans to let them fight on their own. If they knew this, they, the alien life forms, would not be frightened. Stand up. But at this time, it was already time to catch up. The distance between the Earth Army's convoy and Solon's convoy was only about 1 kilometer. The assassin the Earth Army had been waiting for had not yet appeared, but Thorin's convoy was the first to open fire. The artillery carts parked on the edge of Huangzhou found their targets one by one, and then their guns turned around. The muzzle of a gun with a caliber of 1000 kukla was aimed at the more than 1,000 tanks of the Earth Army that were advancing. After that, I saw a slightly shiny luster appearing on the muzzle. The luster was red, indicating to them that it was made by Asta people. And on this planet, the weapons of the Asta people are a manifestation of strength. Boom boom boom. Just after the muzzles of the guns were aimed at the target one by one, the sound of gunfire rang out in unison. After all, although red light weapons are also a kind of energy, not light in the true sense, they also have recoil. Therefore, when these powerful weapons are launched towards the Earth Army at a speed that is at least 100 times faster than the speed of sound, these huge weapons the body of the car actually retreated due to recoil. This shows how powerful these attacks are. Boom boom boom. The Earth Army here. Although it does not have the combat effectiveness of Thorin's fleet. But as two teams that can exist for a long time and will not be swallowed up by other teams, the members of the original Alus team and the living beings of the Lokov team. Naturally, it also has a certain amount of combat power and can attack in one round. At least it's impossible to cause them to collapse directly. Just when the opponent's artillery fire appeared, I prayed for the assassin to appear, but I didn't see him. The living beings here had no choice but to start fighting mode on their own. After all, the assassin cannot do everything personally, maybe he is in the sky. Maybe it's possible to observe the fighting prowess of myself and others. Thinking of this, most living beings still feel confident. If it were in the past, even though they knew they could fight against the behemoth Solon racing team for just a short moment. But it is absolutely impossible to stroke this tiger's tail. But now they have the confidence to look forward to, and their combat effectiveness has also improved. Open the chariot protection. The small car body can dodge freely. Alu suddenly made a sound. Just after his order was issued. 1/3 of the medium-sized or larger tanks with larger bodies suddenly activated a faint energy film on the surface of the body. This kind of energy is similar to the energy membrane activated by those metal monster buildings when I was on Earth. Jia Yan found in the sky that a part of the car body on his side, activated the defensive membrane, looked a little familiar. Look. Boom boom boom. The electromagnetic gunfire over there struck hard on the car bodies with the protective film turned on. Suddenly, a transparent light was seen flowing in the car body. The attacks of those large and medium-sized missiles comparable to those on the Earth were actually fired one by one. It can only cause the car bodies to roll over and shake, and there will be no other damage. Even some tanks were bombarded by powerful artillery fire, and were completely bombarded several meters below the ground. However, after the yellow sand in the sky passed, most of these tanks were still intact. Even if some were damaged, it was not a huge damage. At least the people inside, there wasn't much damage. The firepower of these artillery carts is slightly less powerful than the single-person artillery fire that Jia Yan endured before. However, the emergence of this kind of artillery cart is not a step back. They just used less power in exchange for being able to a long attack. Boom boom boom. Rows of gun carriages sprayed flames one after another. On the Earth Army side, casualties began to appear. Those large and medium-sized tanks can still use the membrane-like energy to withstand the opponent's artillery fire, but the small tanks are not so easy. They can only rely on their flexible bodies to survive the cannon fire in the sky. Dodge the red rays. When Jia Yan ordered the Alus convoy to attack the Lukafu convoy, they were all small tanks, so that Jia Yan did not know that those large and medium-sized tanks had defensive energy membranes. That's all. I thought they had some improvement in strength, but it turns out they are still the same as before. They must have taken the wrong medicine. Ha ha ha. The semi-mechanical monster over there laughed directly after seeing how unbearable the Olux and Lokov coalition forces were. Fortunately, on the Earth Army's side, the two combined armies are definitely not easy to get along with. Their respective strengths can survive within a radius of more than 100 miles. Now they are united to take care of the Alus convoy. That kind of timidity and caution, but also the kind of boldness and arrogance of the craft racing team. Even if the strength has just been united, it is definitely not completely one-sided. Fight back. The assassin is watching from the sky, fight back. Alus was riding in his own chariot. His chariot was the best among all the chariots. It had strong defense and even had a certain ability to fly. However, he was also disgraced at this time because part of the artillery fire was concentrated. It was bombarded on his car body. But thinking of the assassin above him watching their actions, the big frog became excited, as if he had completely abandoned his previous timidity and roared directly. After hearing his order, the people in the Lukafu convoy naturally sneered. Although the power fell into his hands, if these desperados were not suppressed by Jia Yan's incredible strength, how could it be possible for a mere Alus to suppress them? Get him. But the soldiers of the original Ulus team were different. Each of them has always been an old man in the Alus team. Although this leader has always been timid and cautious, he has not been able to make any big money, and even the life forms of the team are not living a very good life. But this leader is a good man. His timidity guaranteed the survivability of the fleet. Even those orphan children, many of them were left behind by the life forms that died in the previous convoys. Generally, the convoys abandoned them and left them to fend for themselves. But Alus picked them all up and raised them himself. Such a leader. Even though there is a certain gap in bravery, they are still convinced. Now let them attack, then it is an attack. Die for the leader. They are willing. Boom boom boom. The tanks here also launched their own attacks one by one. Chariot in the desert. There are several modes, and these modes all have their own reasons for desert tanks. The first point. It just abandons the flying function of other combat weapons, perhaps those flying weapons. The combat strength is extremely high, just like those military aircraft of the Sheriff, there are only a few of those aircraft. It can wipe out the always powerful convoy. But that kind of aircraft is for military use after all. It is extremely difficult to own it on this planet. Even if you own it, you don't dare to use it casually, because if you use it, you will probably provoke the police or even the military. Got it? As for the second reason for using tanks, It is also the bigger reason, that is, although other more advanced combat tools are not impossible to obtain on this planet, they all require strong energy support, just like those. If it were not for the powerful energy support, the sheriff's aircraft would not be able to fly so smoothly and still fight in the air. If there is no matching energy source, those powerful aircraft or other combat tools are nothing more than high-end toys, and these things are strictly prohibited military supplies on the Grey Star. As for those ordinary people's flying cars, they are all low-level flying cars with charge method. What's more, they are just a simple means of transportation for combat, which is a joke. This kind of chariot is a very suitable tool in the desert. Their energy can even be mined in this desert, which is the oil that people on Earth are familiar with. It's just that the alien tanks' usage of oil has greatly increased, and even some small tanks simply use charging methods. This is also the reason why tanks are so widely used in this gray-yellow desert. The war at this time can be described as a war between chariots and chariots. Countless firelights shot up between the two. The firelight of the Ulu's team was mostly a faint gray light, while the firelight of the Lukafu team was gray with a bright white light. In fact, bright white fire is the lowest level of fire. The emergence of this kind of fire has been in interstellar civilization many, many years ago, and today's Lukafu fleet is still using this kind of attack weapon. It can be seen that the difference in equipment. Fortunately, the craft convoy still had those powerful individual warriors. These warriors opened the door and fell out of the car body one by one. They were holding very distinctive individual weapons in their hands. There was even one individual who was holding the weapon that Jia Yan had tried before. 1500 Kukla individual artillery. These individual units were faster and more flexible. Jia Yan was flying in the sky, and he was surprised to find that he had indeed underestimated the members of the Lukafu convoy. Some individual soldiers wear a kind of fully armed armor. This armor is extremely hard, but not heavy at the same time. With the defensive power of these individual soldiers, they are even occasionally affected by the fire of those powerful artillery vehicles. Able to survive safely. Each of them was carrying a weapon, especially those who looked like they were only about 2 meters tall, but their bodies were like three-eyed monsters with 3 mouths made of muscles. They were like twin brothers, and they had a kind of telepathy while charging. The evading movements were very coordinated, and they broke through to the vicinity of several Thorin artillery carts in one fell swoop. Boom! Several three-eyed monsters simultaneously took down the weapons on their shoulders. After the roar of light, several tanks actually caught fire and exploded. This was the first prey captured by the Earth Army since the war began. Okay, Jia Yan, who was in the sky, couldn't help but burst into cheers from the bottom of his heart. The battle below gradually became more exciting. The Earth Army, from being suppressed at the beginning, gradually gained the ability to fight back, and even caused the loss of no less than 1/3 of the artillery vehicles of Thorin's fleet. Asshole! Come out with all the follow-up tanks. If you don't give them any clues, you think we are easy to deal with. Thorin and other leaders of Thorin's convoy over there all looked unhappy. They claimed to be the invincible existence in the surrounding area. They originally only wanted to use their own artillery fire to easily suppress or even eliminate the Earth Army, but they didn't think. After the Olux racing team and the Lukafu racing team joined forces, it was like they had eaten explosives, and they actually refused to retreat. Seeing that the other party had lost no less than 20% of its personnel in the battle, it seemed that it could not do anything better today. It simply mobilized all its strength and paid a small price to strangle this coalition force directly. It won't work if we don't fight. That lord is watching right now. Thorin looked at the forest behind the battlefield and murmured to several other life forms with some worry. At the same time, high in the sky, Jia Yan also moved his body, doing some activities to prepare for battle.